A woman falls into a magical book, having become a revenge novel's blood-stained protagonist.
Desperate silhouettes scream as a city is consumed by an infernal and violent blaze.
The black-haired Nilsi Glory stands with a somber expression as the notorious witch.
Civilians flee in terror as the feared witch walks through the ruins of her destiny.
A young blonde boy stares forward, a distinct star-shaped tattoo marked upon his chest.
A noble knight stands with a dove as the blonde boy begs for salvation.
The young blonde boy radiates joy with a wide, bright, and truly heartwarming smile.
The boy tackles Nilsi in an exuberant hug, causing tea and books to fly. The scene shifts to the quiet streets of Psyche Town within the Ulysses Kingdom. Passers-by navigate the stone streets of the town as a cloaked figure walks unnoticed.
Inside a local tavern, the red-haired traveler attempts to order a drink from the barkeep. A patron informs the red-haired man that the grieving barkeep will not respond to anyone.
The patron explains the tavern's tragedy involving the death of the owner's son during a kidnapping.
The men discuss how the witch's assault on the church destroyed the town's public security.
Startled by a rhythmic sound, the tavern patrons turn to see droplets falling onto the table.
A cloaked Nilsi sits alone and weeping while the red-haired traveler checks on her well-being.
Nilsi reveals her face and tearfully laments her inherent nature as a source of tragedy.
The patrons are instantly captivated by Nilsi's radiant beauty as she sits amidst glowing sparkles.
A decorative frame formally introduces the heavy and dreaded title associated with the witch. Nilse explains her regression into a tragic novel as the main character with a cursed past. After the church betrayed her and killed her loved ones, Nilse was left in despair.
In her final moments, she activated a powerful spell and accidentally regressed 20 years.
A red-haired warrior single-handedly obliterates the church's research center, ending their immortality project. The fiery warrior becomes known to the world as the legendary red-haired witch.
Nilse takes over the role, finding that her life as a witch is surprisingly manageable.
She uses her magic to conjure gold, finding amusement in gambling and evading her enemies.
Despite her wealth and power, a deep and unshakable melancholy begins to take hold.
Nilsi's cheerful exterior fades into tears as she struggles with her internal emotional weight. Every tragedy she witnesses, from executions to fires, adds to her growing sense of depression.
Even small sorrows, like the passing of a pet, significantly increase her overwhelming emotional burden.
Nils stands amidst wilting flowers, admitting that even minor events leave her uncontrollably depressed.
She tries to cheer herself up with a walk, but the gloomy atmosphere only dampens her spirits.
Resting in the tavern, Nilse fears her depression will end her life before she finds purpose.
A violent explosion rocks the tavern, throwing patrons aside and shattering the quiet atmosphere. Nils watches the chaos unfold, reminded of her role as the story's main character. A bruised and chained green-haired child is held captive, appearing battered and defeated.
A massive training officer drags the chained boy into the tavern to demonstrate his authority. Terrified patrons warn the traveler not to cross the brutal Tartarus officer currently entering. The officer laughs while patrons describe the horrors of the suicide soldier training program.
The officer looms over the blonde boy, taunting him with the reality of his isolation. Demonstrating his cruelty, the officer heartlessly throws his small, chained prisoner onto the floor.
Disgusted by the officer's behavior, Nilse prepares to intervene using a glowing magical artifact.
The officer threatens the blonde boy, stating that mercy is no longer an option.
Despite the danger, the blonde boy desperately clutches a handful of stones from the ground.
As the officer moves to maim him, the boy launches a sudden and fierce counterattack. The officer reels back in shock after the boy's unexpected strike lands with force.
Seizing the opportunity, the boy charges forward with a sharpened piece of broken wood. The blonde boy drives his weapon into the officer with an expression of pure rage. The officer retaliates with a brutal blow, sending the young boy crashing to the floor.
The blonde boy lies bleeding and exhausted on the ground after his desperate struggle. The officer threatens to kill the young boy while nursing his recently injured Nodit.
Nilse confronts the officer. He questions her presence and tells her to leave immediately.
Nilse's internal monologue analyzes the officer's physical tier and lack of internal mana flow.
Nilse questions if the boy strategically analyzed his attack point before striking the officer. The officer shouts at Nilse, while she notes the boy's youth prevented a lethal strike.
Nilse reflects on the remarkable combat talent possessed by a character within this novel's world.
Nilse fiercely repeats her demand for the officer to leave as he reacts with anger. The officer reaches out to grab Nilse's clothing in a sudden and forceful attack.
In a sudden flash, the officer's hand is severed, leaving him and onlookers in shock.
The officer screams in agony, unable to perceive how his hand was cut off instantly. The terrified officer asks if this is possible and demands to know who Nilse is. A close-up shows the officer's wide-eyed realization and absolute disbelief at the unfolding magical situation. Nils taunts the officer's deduction as she begins to manifest a massive vortex of fire.
A colossal explosion of flame incinerates the tavern as the young boy watches the destruction.
Nilse cold-bloodedly tells the dying officer to seek further answers from Satan as she glows.
A promotional credits page shows Nilse and the boy detailing the Scanlation team staff roles.
Witnesses react to the officer's instant death and Nilse's hair turning red with magic. People flee in terror as the witch stands with the boy amidst the tavern's ruins. Nils notes her sorrow has stopped, but feels she is being devoured by an emptiness. A man approaches Nilse, addressing her respectfully as the mistress witch while she looks amazed. The man begs Nilse to save the bruised, green-haired child held in his protective arms. Nilse questions his motivation. The man explains the child is the same age as his son. The man expresses his inability to witness another tragedy after already losing his own child.
Nilse explains her magic is poison and healing spells would cause the child irreversible damage. A close-up of the green-haired boy's face shows the toxic effects of the magical curse. Nilse apologizes, stating she can do nothing because her nature as a witch is cursed. As the man and child weep, Nilse hears the screams again and feels despair returning. Nilse feels haunted by shadowy hands while the blonde boy reaches out to help the child. Golden light emanates from the blonde boy's hand as he prepares to heal the suffering boy. The man exclaims that it is a miracle as the blonde boy successfully heals the child.
Nilse realizes the boy is a paladin candidate, the only one ever trained by Tartarus.
Nilse suddenly lunges forward and tears the boy's shirt open to inspect his upper chest. The blonde boy stares back with sad eyes, revealing a star-shaped tattoo on his collarbone. Nilse's internal monologue confirms the boy's identity and his significant role in her past life. A flashback reveals the boy leading an army and crushing the rebels led by Nilse. The flashback continues, showing the witch dying as a massive sword pierces through her chest. Nilse realizes that if she hadn't regressed, the story would have ended with her death. A vision of a winter scene shows the adult boy holding Nilse's lifeless, bleeding body. The boy's green eyes are full of tears as he stares up at Nilse innocently.
A close-up shows the boy's bruised neck as snowflakes fall around the two of them.
Nilse stops and gently touches the boy's neck, unable to follow through with the killing.
Nils crouches down and pets the boy's head as he looks up at her trusting way.
Nilse admits she could not kill the boy that day despite knowing his future actions. Looking at the boy with a gentle expression, Nilse asks if he wants to join her. Nils drinks tea as a message marks the passage of several years in their life together. The grown blonde boy displays a bright, truly heartwarming and exuberant smile toward his savior.
The boy tackles Nilse in a hug, announcing he wiped out the bandits she requested.
The boy asks for his reward while wagging an imaginary tail like a loyal, happy dog.
The hotel stands quietly under the moonlit sky, ending the current sequence of the witch's journey. The inn's receptionist offers a warm welcome as Nilse Glory enters the establishment.
Charmed by Nilse's radiant beauty, the receptionist stares in awe while Nilse smiles softly.
The receptionist asks if they're staying. Nilse requests a room for 2 people.
Nilse stands with the suitcase and the young boy ready to settle him.
A close-up shows the young boy's weary and somber expression as they arrive.
The receptionist asks if they are siblings. Nilse cryptically denies having a brother. Nilse internally muses that she views the boy more like a pet than a sibling.
Soldiers search the town at night with torches, investigating the area for the witch.
Guards post wanted posters featuring Nilse's image on the walls across the quiet town. Watching the guards from her window, Nilse notes they must leave soon to avoid capture. Disgusted by the boy's messy eating habits, Nilse asks if he lacks basic table manners.
Nilse stands elegantly amidst a backdrop of blooming flowers, reflecting her powerful and refined nature.
Taking charge of his education, Nilse demonstrates how to properly hold and use a fork. The young boy focuses intensely on his meal, successfully using the fork to eat pasta. Nilse watches the boy eat with a calm, watchful gaze, overseeing his slow progress. Curious about his silence, Nilse asks if the boy is truly unable to speak words. Troubled by the boy's condition, Nilse expresses her internal frustration regarding his traumatic past. Narrative text explains that Tartarus used magic parasites to turn children into emotionless, tireless weapons. The parasites create perfect, empty weapons by consuming the host's sense of self and fatigue. Despite the danger, Nilse resolves that it is not too late to remove the parasite.
Nils gazes at the boy with a mix of pity and determination to save him.
Overwhelmed by the pressure of the upcoming magical procedure, Nilse has a loud comedic breakdown.
She worries that her magic might accidentally kill the boy during the parasite's removal process.
Accepting the risks, Nilse prepares to unleash her power to perform the dangerous magical operation. Nilse admits she would prefer not to summon her companion if it were possible otherwise. Summoning a decorative staff, Nilse commands the entity named Mammon to wake up immediately. The staff's face greets Mistress Neelis warmly, terrifying the boy into a panicked state. Hissing like a frightened animal, the boy cowers beneath a table to avoid the staff. Mammon teases Nilse about her past reactions. Nilse sharply tells the sentient staff to shut up. A whimsical title introduces a cooking lesson led by Mammon, the witch's magical companion staff. Mammon details how to prepare magic lizard and salt samu fruit for the special cure. The recipe continues with seasonings and a 7-hour simmer for the magical parasite cure. A steaming bowl of soup is presented as the completed cure for the magic parasite. Nilse and the boy look at the unconventional meal with expressions of pure bewilderment.
Nils questions if this is dinner. Mammon warns that removing the parasite brings significant pain.
As the boy tries the cure, the scene shifts to a symbolic representation of breaking free. The boy collapses and coughs in agony as the cure begins its violent, painful work. Narrative text notes that few can withstand the excruciating pain of removing a magic parasite. Nilsi releases a burst of magic, signaling the climactic moment of the boy's difficult treatment. Looking down solemnly, Nilse focuses all her energy on ensuring the boy's survival through the ordeal.
A vision depicts a younger Nilse bound to a throne by painful, magical thorny vines.
The thorny vines tighten their grip, drawing blood as they drain energy from the seated figure. The boy screams in absolute torment as the parasite is forcefully purged from his body. Nilse places a comforting hand on the suffering boy's head, trying to soothe his intense pain. Embracing the boy amidst a golden light, Nilse provides the warmth and protection he desperately needs. Nilse gently tells the boy not to be scared as the procedure finally concludes.
A lamp burns low in their quiet room as the two rest after the ordeal.
Nilse and the boy sleep peacefully together, having survived the dangerous night and the cure. Waking up, the boy realizes he is cured while Nilse remains asleep and groans softly. Nilse sleeps with blood on her face, exhausted but satisfied that she saved her young ward. Harvey checks on Nilse as she finally rests after the grueling night of magical procedures. Nilse wakes and tells Harvey to relax while she recovers from the intense magical drainage.
Harvey smiles warmly over a field of hydrangeas as the memory of pain begins fading.
Nilse rests peacefully among lush greenery, her exhaustion replaced by a moment of quiet tranquility.
White blossoms drift through the clear sky, marking a peaceful transition in their journey together.
Market vendors loudly hawk their freshly brewed ales to the crowds of people passing by. Nilse complains about high prices while noting Harvey's vocabulary is expanding rapidly after his cure. Nilse finds Harvey's struggles with complex pronunciations adorable as the young boy repeats difficult words. Nilse reacts with sudden shock after a man accidentally bumps into her in the crowd. The boy calls out Nilse's name clearly, causing her to stop and listen to him. Harvey looks up with bright eyes, successfully addressing Nilse by her name for the first time. Nilse notes that his voice sounds remarkably clear and distinct when he calls out to her.
Harvey pulls on Nilse's cloak and warns her not to wander off in the busy marketplace.
Nilse tries to teach Harvey to use titles like Miss instead of just using her name. Nilse considers her next move, wondering if she can find any useful herbs to disguise Harvey. A sudden sharp shout for people to clear the path startles Nilse in the marketplace.
A runaway horse nearly tramples Harvey, prompting Nilse to prepare a desperate magical intervention.
A loud crash echoes through the market square as the dangerous confrontation reaches a climax.
A woman shields Harvey from the horse while Nilse watches with a mix of relief. Nilse stares in disbelief, trying to identify the stranger who just risked her life for Harvey. The kind stranger checks on Harvey's well-being after pulling him away from the charging horse. The woman asks Harvey if he is injured while he stares back at her, confused. The woman laughs off Harvey's confusion, telling the boy he is being silly for asking.
Nilse and Harvey are both stunned into silence when the stranger reveals herself as Harvey's mother.
A man named Ford introduces himself and his wife Sonara while apologizing for the confusion. Sonara admits through tears that Harvey looks exactly like her son Swift did when young. The woman begins to sob as the memory of her lost child becomes too much. Nils has a comedic breakdown as the couple's tragic story triggers her overwhelming emotional curse. Ford and Sonara are surprised when Nilse suddenly grabs Harvey and pulls him into a hug. The group gathers around a table, with Nilse still struggling to control her sudden, intense emotions. Nilse finally stops crying, much to her relief, while the couple watches her with concern.
Nilse reflects on how her time alone with Harvey made her forget her body's awful habit.
Realizing they cannot linger, Nilse tries to think of a polite way to leave their home. Niels makes an excuse about the hour, but Ford offers to show Harvey his workshop.
Harvey's eyes light up with pure excitement at the prospect of visiting Ford's weapon workshop.
Ford leads the eager boy away, while Nilse tries to stop their sudden, energetic departure. Sonara stops Nilse and tentatively begins to ask her a personal question about her family. Sonara asks why their parents aren't with them. Nilse prepares to fabricate a tragic backstory. Nilse claims they were both orphans, a lie that Sonara finds strangely and confusingly uplifting. Nilse is confused by Sonara's reaction until the woman clarifies that she meant it's a pity. Sonara proposes that since they both lack family, she has a sudden, nervous idea for them. Nilse is caught off guard when Sonara includes her in the emotional offer, wondering what's happening. Sonara excitedly reveals her dream was always to have a beautiful daughter whose hair she styles. The grieving woman looks at Nilse with a hopeful expression, waiting for her to respond.
Unable to refuse the woman's kindness, Nilse decides to play along and get a free haircut.
Sonara gently brushes Nilse's long hair, mentioning that her own daughter would be her age.
The woman's expression turns somber as she thinks about the passage of time and her family. Sonara laments how sons grow up and leave their families to pursue their own distant dreams. Ford and Sonara grieve together over a letter, mourning their son who chose his career.
Nilse feels a twinge of guilt for asking about their son, while Sonara offers an apology.
Sonara brushes Nilse's hair while insisting that her son's tragic fate is not a secret. Nilse looks down sadly as Sonara explains her son died fighting the witch for the church.
Outside their quaint home, the couple invites Nils and Harvey to stay for a home-cooked dinner. As the couple departs for the market, Nilse cheerfully waves them goodbye while Harvey rests nearby. Mammon's voice echoes in the quiet room, questioning if Nilse feels guilt for killing the couple's son. Nils glares coldly, threatening to shatter Mammon if the sentient staff continues its disrespectful and civilist behavior. Mammon warns Nilse that the invitation might be a trap and suggests taking preemptive action instead.
At the market, Sonara carefully inspects the meat and rejects anything that isn't perfectly fresh.
Ford questions the massive grocery haul, but Sonara insists on providing a feast for their rare guests. Market whispers about the witch's terrifying proximity reach the couple as they gather their food supplies.
A frantic local stops Sonara to deliver shocking news regarding the witch's sudden appearance in the area.
Sonara's expression turns to horror as she learns that the witch has finally been spotted nearby.
Sonara overhears locals discussing the witch's victims, specifically mentioning her son's tragic involvement in the conflict. Despite the weight of the news, Sonara stoically demands to hear every detail about the current situation.
Sonara asks for a description of the child the witch reportedly abducted, her eyes filled with determination.
Harvey welcomes Nilse back while asking about Ford's whereabouts as she sits comfortably inside the house.
The shadow of Sonara looms in the doorway as she returns home with a basket of food. Sonara smiles warmly, announcing that Ford is in the workshop while she prepares a massive celebratory meal.
While presenting the feast, Sonara hides sharp scissors behind her back as Harvey watches her with suspicion. Sensing the danger, Harvey's hand strikes forward to block Sonara from drawing the weapon against Nilse.
Harvey aggressively disarms Sonara, turning the scissors against her in a sudden and fierce protective counterattack.
A magical binding suddenly freezes Harvey in place, leaving him unable to move his struggling body. Sonara lunges at Nilse while Ford enters the room with a rifle, shouting for her men. Nilse stands amidst a flurry of petals as her hair begins to glow with intense magical power.
Sonara stares in absolute disbelief as she realizes the woman before her is the legendary witch.
Nilse seizes the scissors as Sonara desperately tries to warn the boy about the witch's murderous reputation. Nilse looks at Sonara with a chilling, arrogant smile, questioning if she truly needs the boy's protection. Pinning Sonara to the floor, Nilse tells the woman to stop playing games and be serious now.
Nils holds the sharp point of the scissors to Sonara's throat, drawing a small bead of blood.
Nils looms over the terrified woman, expressing a cold sense of disappointment at the unfolding tragic situation.
A sharp metallic sound rings through the house as a projectile is fired toward the center room.
Nilse effortlessly catches a speeding bullet with her bare hand while maintaining her calm and menacing posture.
Ford aims his rifle at Nilse and desperately screams for Sonara to run away and find safety.
Ford shields his wife as Nilse drops the crushed bullet, causing Harvey to call out her name. Sonara clings to Harvey, warning him about the witch's body count and promising to protect him herself.
Harvey stands frozen and conflicted as Nilse's magical aura begins to fade back into her human form. Nilse prepares to depart while Harvey reaches out to her with an expression of confusion and fear. Nilse advises Harvey that he would have a better life being adopted by a loving human family.
Nilse claims she doesn't want to babysit him, prompting Harvey to desperately beg her not to leave.
Harvey throws himself into Nilse's arms, clutching her dress and refusing to let go of his savior. Nilse envisions a future where Harvey grows up loved, finds a good career, and falls in love. Nilse explains that Harvey won't face the hatred she endures if he chooses to stay with them.
Harvey screams in absolute defiance, rejecting the peaceful life in favor of staying by Nilse's side forever.
Nilse accepts his choice, vowing to stay together even if the world continues to reject them both. Nilse gazes downward with a look of profound sorrow, her heart heavy with the weight of destiny. Ford tries to restrain the grieving Sonara, warning her that she cannot win against the powerful witch.
Sonara vows to stop Nilse from killing again, while Nilse questions if her son was truly innocent.
A memory shows Sonara working at the church, peering through windows to find her beloved son, Swift.
Sonara is haunted by a vision of Swift brutally torturing a prisoner inside the church's dark dungeon.
Sonara collapses in denial, dropping the rifle while claiming the witch must be mistaken about her son.
Nil's glory stands in somber reflection as she remembers every life ended by her hand. A memory reveals Nils standing over the fallen body of the boy she once killed.
Amidst the ruins, the dying boy's final plea for his mother reaches Nils's ears.
The witch burned the boy's body to purge the sins he bore during his life.
A grieving couple clings to each other in sorrow, a discarded rifle lying nearby. The woman lets out an agonizing scream of despair as she mourns her falling son.
Sunlight illuminates a peaceful village nestled quietly between the rolling green hills and fluffy clouds.
Two children argue over a handmade doll, both claiming it was crafted specifically for them. Harvey works on a mechanical device while a young girl watches his progress with fascination. Blue energy swirls as Harvey successfully installs a magical core into his latest mechanical creation.
The villagers express their deep gratitude and invite Harvey to visit their shop very soon.
When asked about his sister, Harvey explains she is a reclusive genius who stays indoors.
The woman hits the man for his overenthusiastic praise while Harvey maintains a humble demeanor.
A pink-haired girl invites Harvey to join them for a meal, but he politely declines.
Harvey explains he must return home to cook for his sister before waving them goodbye. Harvey walks through the village, heading toward his house as the sun shines brightly above. The villagers admire Harvey's good character while the pink-haired girl watches him leave with longing. The mustached man realizes he forgot to pay Harvey and calls out to his companions. A boy carrying barrels is startled when Harvey suddenly passes him in a narrow alleyway. Driven by curiosity, the two children decide to follow Harvey home to see his sister.
Harvey's popularity among the villagers sparks a sense of envy in his secret young followers.
A chibi-style sequence shows the children struggling to keep up with Harvey's surprisingly fast pace. The exhausted children reach Harvey's house, huffing for air after the long and difficult trek. Finding the door unlocked, the two children cautiously step into the quiet and rustic home. They call for Harvey, but the lack of response suggests he is not yet inside.
Harvey calls out to Neelis, scolding his sister for once again sleeping in the potion lab.
Harvey tells Neelis food is nearly ready, while the two hiding children watch with interest.
Harvey discovers the intruders. The girl claims they came to pay and want to meet her.
Nils hears the commotion and wonders about the noise as Harvey tries to prevent a meeting. Rhythmic clicks echo through the house as Nils's black shoes descend the wooden staircase steps.
The pink-haired girl and brown-haired boy are captivated by Nilse's unexpected and radiant beauty.
Nilse appears in a dark, elegant gown, looking remarkably different from her reclusive reputation.
Nilse asks if they have guests, her gaze falling upon the two stunned and silent children. The group settles around a table as Nilse serves tea amidst a heavy, awkward silence. Nilse is internally panicked, shaking with anxiety as she struggles to find words for outsiders.
Nilse reflects on her reclusive life where Harvey handled all interactions with the outside world.
Overwhelmed by social anxiety, Nilse fears being judged as outdated or bullied by the children. Desperate and socially overwhelmed, Nilse silently pleads for someone to save her from this situation. The children compliment Nilse's beauty, noting that she and Harvey share no physical resemblance at all. Harvey tenderly places a white shawl over Nilse's shoulders as she sits with their guests.
Nilse is shocked by the girl's blunt observation about her and Harvey not being blood-related.
Harvey asks why the girl looks pale. She nervously claims her reaction is from hunger. Encouraged by the mention of hunger, Nilse excitedly offers to prepare some snacks for Key. Harvey tries to stop her, reminding Nilse that she has absolutely no experience with cooking. Nilse insists she has cooked for him before, leading to a humorous and skeptical disagreement. Harvey takes over the housework, advising Nilse to be careful not to injure herself today. Nilse vows to be a perfect hostess and avoid embarrassing Harvey in front of his friends. The pink-haired girl watches Harvey and Nilse's interaction with a look of skepticism and suspicion. Nilse pumps herself up with determination to prove her skills as a hospitable hostess today. 3 hours later, Nilse proudly presents a glowing, bizarre blue cake that appears utterly inedible. The brown-haired boy says looks aren't everything for cakes. The pink-haired girl agrees taste matters most. Upon tasting the cake, the children find it completely revolting, while Nilse reacts with physical embarrassment.
The girl says the cake is raw inside, and the boy finds it too sweet.
Nilse apologizes for the inedible cake and suggests that they just go buy one instead. Harvey notes a pleasant fragrance from the long baking time, surprising Nilse and their young guests. Harvey eats the cake with a bright smile, telling Nilse that he actually really likes it. Harvey tenderly wipes Nilse's face, creating a sweet moment that leaves her feeling flustered and shocked. The pink-haired girl watches the intimate interaction between Harvey and Nilse with a complicated expression. The sun begins to set over the quiet house, marking the end of the day's visit. Harvey tells Nilse it is late. Nilse then invites the guests to stay the night. Nilse kindly tells the pink-haired girl she can call her sis, just like Harvey does. Nilse leaves the children to get settled, while they respond with a polite and nervous acknowledgement. The girl finds Nilse surprisingly friendly, while the boy suggests they try calling her sis. The boy begins to address Nilse as sis, but the girl immediately and sharply stops him. Harvey darkly warns them they cannot call her that, emphasizing that she is exclusively his sister. The moon shines brightly over the house as everyone settles in for the night together. A pair of hands carefully adjust the bedding, ensuring the guests are comfortable for the night. Harvey tells the children to rest and specifies where to find him if they need anything. Harvey waves goodnight and tells his guests he will see them both in the morning. A sudden, loud sound echoes as the door closes firmly for the night ahead. The children feel relieved to be alone, agreeing that they must never make Harvey angry. The pink-haired girl jumps excitedly onto the bed, celebrating her first time staying away from home. The girl rolls around in bed with joy. The boy warns her not to break it. The girl suggests a late-night adventure, but the boy immediately rejects the idea as being terrible. The girl warns about a carnivorous find from a legendary story passed down through many generations. The story begins with a young man named Ram, sharing the name of the listening boy. Ram was a hardworking hunter who ventured deep into the forest to support his meager life.
Ram was attacked and gobbled up by a living vine, causing the terrified boy to scream.
Villagers searched the forest for the missing hunter but found no trace of him anywhere nearby. They found only a patch of blossoming vines before discovering Ram's horrifying and tragic final fate. The girl shows a scary image of Ram turned into a rolled-up sheet of human leather. The boy screams in terror as the girl laughs at his cowardice during the late-night story. The girl promises to stop scaring him and suggests that they talk about something else instead.
The girl asks if Ram is asleep, only to find that the boy has actually fainted.
The girl lies awake in the quiet room, her expression turning somber as she thinks privately.
Remembering Harvey and Nilse together, the girl clenches her hand in a moment of internal frustration.
Realizing she cannot sleep, the girl decides to leave the room and go for a walk.
Stepping onto the wooden floor, the girl's boot accidentally snaps a small, delicate flower lying there.
The girl looks down with a start, wondering exactly what she just stepped on in the dark.
Kneeling down, the girl finds the flower's presence inside the house to be very strange and confusing.
The girl looks up at a ladder leading toward a window overgrown with glowing blue-flowered vines.
She swallows hard as the frightening story of the carnivorous vine suddenly flashes back through her mind.
Nilse's internal voice laments that magic kills the things she tries to save, reflecting her tragic curse. Nilse looks down sadly as she reflects on her curse, which brings ruin to everything around her.
Nilse hears a noise and demands to know who is there while her magical power glows brightly.
The girl peeks into the room, asking Miss Neelis if she was speaking to someone just now. The girl mesmerized by the stunning and magical sight of Nilse standing in the moonlight.
Nilse, surrounded by glowing vines, asks Emily why she is still awake at such a late hour.
The girl is completely mesmerized by Nisa's appearance, thinking she looks absolutely gorgeous in the magical light.
Emily rushes toward Nilse with excitement, her eyes shining with wonder as she experiences real magic.
Nilse explains that the glowing plant is not inherently magical but requires magic to grow. Nilse reveals that the plant possesses some sentience and can communicate its feelings through magical vibes.
Nilse tells the boy to pour tea for their guest while Emily stares in absolute wonder.
Emily finds the plant adorable and asks if it has been given a specific name.
A delicate hand reaches out toward the glowing blue flowers nestled among the thorny green vines.
Nilse apologizes for its shy nature, lamenting that the plant will wither and die very soon.
Nilse reflects on her unique magic, which causes anything alive to reject it and eventually perish.
She admits that providing more of her magic will only accelerate the plant's inevitable and tragic end. Emily wonders if magic from a different source might be able to save the dying astral vine. Nilse agrees with the theory but questions where they could possibly find another skilled magician nearby.
Emily energetically volunteers to be trained as a magician so she can help save the plant.
The sun rises over the quiet house, marking the beginning of a new and busy day. Ram wakes up on the wooden floor, groaning in pain and wondering how long he was out.
Ram asks about the noise while Harvey explains that the balcony has been extremely loud all morning.
Harvey and Ram argue over the dangers of training while a chaotic chase begins in the background.
Nilse frantically flees from the balcony while Emily pursues her, begging to be taught real magic. Nilse lets out a panicked scream, firmly rejecting Emily's request to become her magic teacher today. Nilse's black shoes click rapidly as she runs past the magical vines covering the wooden floor. Harvey looks up in total confusion, startled by the sudden and loud commotion coming from upstairs. Harvey catches the fleeing Nilse in a dramatic embrace as flower petals swirl around them both. Harvey asks what happened while the other two children watch the intense scene with curious expressions. Emily uses a series of comedic flashbacks to explain how she relentlessly followed Nilse for lessons. Ram becomes irritated by the explanation and calls Emily a brat for her persistent and annoying behavior. A sharp impact symbol appears as Ram loses his patience with Emily's constant and loud demands.
Ram scolds Emily, ordering her to apologize and stop causing so much trouble for their host.
Nilse turns to Harvey and asks if he is truly comfortable with her training the new guests. Harvey asks if saving the astral vine would make Nilse happy, ignoring the question about his comfort. Harvey's green eyes sparkle with kindness as he focuses entirely on Nilse's personal joy and well-being. A narrative box confirms that Harvey believes making Neelis happy is the only right thing to do. Nilse reacts with visible worry and nervous sweat, overwhelmed by Harvey's unwavering and intense support.
Nilse's eyes reflect a dark and somber memory as she thinks back to her past life.
A silhouette reveals that the original Nealis once had a dedicated student during her secret plans. The memory shows the student's agonizing death, a nightmare that continues to haunt Nilse's guilty soul.
Nilse reminds herself that she's a transmigrator and should not be burdened by Neelis's trauma.
Nils snaps her fingers with newfound determination, deciding to move forward and ignore the dark past.
The group watches Nilse as she finally prepares to make a decision about their future together.
Nilse announces that magic classes for all three of them will officially begin the following morning.
Nilse touches her chest, adding a serious condition before she begins her first real magic lesson. Striking a confident and commanding pose, Nilse demands absolute obedience from her three new magical students.
The grueling training begins with the children running laps while Harvey practices his intense sword swings. Harvey stops to wipe away sweat, showing the results of his hard work and physical development.
Nils passes Harvey for the day, but he offers to run extra laps with his friends.
The exhausted children complain about the physical toll while suspecting Nilse is actually a cruel witch.
Nilse supervises the training from her comfortable lounge chair, keeping an eye on the sand timer.
Nilse assigns household chores as the next task while Harvey brings her a refreshing glass of juice.
Nilse asks Harvey again if he is okay with this, and he supports her completely.
Harvey explains that he believes Nilse is doing this for their own good because they're friends.
Harvey clarifies that his reasons for wanting them to stay involve more than just simple friendship. That night, Harvey approaches Nilce's room with a tray, noticing she is still awake and thinking.
Harvey stands silently in the doorway, watching Nilce as she reflects on her heavy and secret burdens.
Harvey asks if using magic risks exposing her identity, but Nilce explains she stored magic in the staff to appear like an ordinary magician. Nilce's slender hand releases a glowing orange orb of concentrated magical energy into the air.
Flower petals swirl around Nilce as she channels her stored power through the wooden staff.
Emily notes that nothing seems to be happening while she and Ram wait in the forest.
A massive phoenix-like bird suddenly erupts from the trees and soars high into the sky.
The giant bird's wings cast a massive shadow over the stunned group as they watch it fly. Ram asks what that creature was. Nilce casually explains it was just a sparrow she transmuted. Nilce invites Ram to try next, but he frantically insists there is no way he can succeed. Emily confidently steps forward, declaring that she will be the one to give it a go.
A hand extends a branch toward 3 small, unsuspecting birds perched on a leafy tree limb.
Emily focuses her concentration, manifesting a glowing magic circle as she attempts the transmutation spell herself. Emily looks up at the birds and expresses her disappointment that nothing seems to have changed.
Harvey and Nilce point toward Emily's target with looks of pure, wide-eyed shock on their faces.
Ram realizes his hat has been turned into a giant pumpkin, and Emily asks what happened.
The pumpkin-headed boy becomes furious at Emily for the results of her botched magical training.
Harvey holds his branch and sternly tells Emily to stop running and change him back immediately.
Harvey notes that's not why he wants them to stay, prompting Nilce to ask for his reasoning. Emily promises to try again while the pumpkin-headed boy chases her with a large green leek.
A sudden transformation occurs, turning the angry boy into a small, pink, and very grumpy pig.
The pig boy asks if Emily did this on purpose, while she insists that she definitely did not.
Nilce laughs joyfully at the chaotic scene while Harvey smiles warmly at her from the floral background.
Nilce relaxes while transmuting household items into birds, filling the air with several small feathered creatures. Ram holds a chirping paper crane, questioning if this result counts as a success or a failure. Nils gives Ram 57 points, noting he is average since he can only create inanimate objects.
Emily admits turning birds into rabbits is hard, but Nilce gives her 87 points for her talent.
Emily celebrates her higher score while Nilce decides to keep her praise secret to avoid inflating Emily's ego.
Emily laments her lack of control and asks Harvey to demonstrate how to perform the spell correctly.
Harvey looks incredibly nervous and hesitant as his friends beg him to show off his magical skills.
Nilce holds up an exclamation point sign, signaling that it is finally time for a good show.
Harvey assumes a determined pose with his staff as glowing magical circles manifest behind his body.
A sudden, powerful gust of wind rustles through the trees, scattering leaves across the clear blue sky. Emily and Ram are impressed by Harvey's intense aura, expecting a truly spectacular display of magic.
Harvey shouts with effort as he swings his staff, but the target bird remains completely unchanged.
The wind dies down as leaves fall gently to the ground in a moment of absolute silence. A small, unimpressed bird hops away from Harvey's feet and disappears into the thick green bushes.
Ram asks if the win was a coincidence, while Nilce trembles with laughter at Harvey's failure. The children wonder why they expected success, while Harvey blushes intensely from the overwhelming sense of embarrassment.
Nilce collapses onto the grass in a fit of laughter while holding up a score of 0.
Nils claims Harvey is no good at magic, but Emily argues that slow and steady wins the race.
Emily defends Harvey with cliches about broken clocks and true teachers, while the boy begs them to stop.
Nilce laments the rudeness of modern children while a magical flame dances above her open palm.
Nilce decides to teach them a lesson, unleashing a sudden and powerful wave of magical energy forward.
Harvey draws his sword to block a barrage of magical projectiles, shielding Emily from the sudden attacks.
Harvey chases the apologetic Nilce while the other 2 children watch the scene in complete and total silence.
Nilce looks back with a tender and knowing smile, her eyes reflecting a deep sense of affection.
Nilce tells Harvey that the answer is already in his hands as he stands with his weapon.
A vision reveals a grown-up Harvey as a powerful warrior with exceptional talent for swordsmanship and combat.
Nils explains Harvey is a paladin who will one day leave her side to help the weak.
Nilce tells the boy not to forget to repay her later, leaving Harvey looking completely and utterly mesmerized.
Harvey stands in somber silence as Ram asks what is wrong with him after the lesson ends.
Emily and Ram head off for the evening while Harvey decides to stay and train lumber.
Harvey takes a steady, deep breath as he prepares himself for his solo training session. Surrounded by glowing magic particles, Harvey focuses his concentration deep within the quiet forest.
Nils watches Harvey from a distance, surprised by his intense and newfound passion for magic.
Emily is determined not to lose, while Ram remains skeptical of both children's competitive nature.
Ram explains that people often fixate on goals to stay connected to someone they love.
Ram asks Emily why she wants to learn magic as a way to illustrate his theory.
Emily's overly enthusiastic response makes Ram immediately regret asking about her personal motivations for magic. Ram explains that Harvey is driven by a desire to share common goals with Nilce.
Ram wonders if their relationship will change when Harvey eventually leaves to train as a knight.
Nils praises Ram's high emotional intelligence while Emily agrees, but Ram angrily dismisses their points.
Emily asks how they should motivate Harvey if his primary drive is based on Nilce.
Nilce experiences a sudden inspiration and enthusiastically announces that she has a plan for Harvey.
Nils huddles with Emily and Ram to whisper her secret plan for Harvey's magical motivation.
Nilce leads the group deeper into the forest, warning them to stay alert for creatures.
Nilce panics as a pack of magic wolves with glowing eyes surrounds the traveling group.
Nilce orders everyone to stand behind her while Emily expresses skepticism about the current plan.
Nilce screams in mock terror as she fails to cast a spell while being attacked.
Harvey suddenly leaps into action, lethally striking down a lunging wolf with his sharp blade. Harvey asks Nilce if she is unharmed while she nervously confirms that she is fine.
Nilce laments her inability to chant spells and claims they will all perish there together.
Nilce continues her dramatic performance while Emily and Ram watch with completely deadpan, unimpressed expressions.
Nilce begs Harvey to stall for more time while he stands ready to face the wolves.
Harvey lets out a confident smirk as he prepares to defend the group from the wolves. Harvey accepts the request since she asked, stepping forward to engage the entire wolf pack.
Nilce closes her eyes and holds her staff, pretending to gather energy for a spell.
Harvey charges into the fray, his sword glowing as he strikes down the remaining magical wolves. A massive explosion of golden energy erupts from Harvey's strike, clearing the entire forest path. Harvey delivers a powerful finishing move, leaving a trail of golden light and destruction behind. A dead wolf lies among red spider lilies following Harvey's overwhelming display of sword skills.
Harvey heroically tells Nilce that the threat is gone and she can practice in peace.
Emily and Ram cheer loudly, declaring Harvey to be the greatest swordsman they have seen.
Harvey stands heroically in the sunlight after the battle, holding his sword with quiet confidence.
Nilce showers Harvey with excessive praise, calling him the only person she can truly count on.
Nilce panics when Harvey doesn't react, while Ram notes that his plan seems to fail.
Emily remarks that Harvey has always been very mature as he stands silently with his back turned.
Harvey turns with a massive blush and sparkles, finishing the word mature as the children stare.
Harvey eagerly asks Nilce to repeat her flattery while Emily expresses shock at his gullibility.
Ram asks Emily if she believes Harvey is truly fooled by Nilce's obvious acting.
Ram struggles to explain the situation as he watches Harvey's overjoyed reaction to Nilce.
Nilce thanks for Sir Knight while Harvey gleefully begs her to repeat the praise again.
Emily successfully uses magic to grow a vine, celebrating her first real achievement in training. Beautiful blue flowers blossom beautifully along the magical vine as Emily continues her focused practice.
Nilce watches Emily's success with a look of quiet satisfaction and relief at the outcome.
Emily notes that her magic slows the plant's decay and feels confident in her future.
Nilce reflects on her past pessimism and wonders why she once felt so completely hopeless.
Nilce admits that hiding made her stagnant and that she was once too afraid to move.
Nilce looks toward the future with a peaceful and determined expression, ready for a change. Emily excitedly suggests that they should finally give the growing astral vine a proper name.
Emily celebrates the progress they have made and expresses total confidence in her future success.
Emily offers a bright and reassuring smile, promising to take care of all their worries. Emily suggests naming the plant Pebbles or Quasawaza, but Ram rejects both ideas for being nonsensical or too long.
Nilce experiences a jarring mental flash of Emily's happy face juxtaposed against a bloody image of a different girl.
Emily settles on the name Wendy, which Nilce likes before excusing herself to go and get changed for the day.
Emily and Ram watch Nilce walk away, expressing concern that she looks physically unwell or perhaps even sick.
Nilce retreats into her room as a dark internal voice notes that she seems to genuinely like the young girl.
Nilce argues with her inner thoughts, claiming she is merely fulfilling her duty to guide a talented and diligent student.
Nilce watches Emily play with magic butterflies, thinking that average people eventually realize the unbridgeable gap between themselves and geniuses.
A dark and distorted memory of an old man named Makara flickers through Nilce's troubled and burdened mind. Nilce looks down with a somber expression, her face shadowed by the heavy weight of her secret past.
Nilce reflects on a girl from her dreams who was the original Neela's first and only magical student.
Nilce remembers how that student died by Neela's hand, struggling with a persistent fear that history will inevitably repeat itself. Nilce stands alone in the silence of her dark room, staring out the window into the quiet night.
Nilce laments her inability to control her emotions, deciding that she is simply not meant to form bonds with others.
A sudden and sharp noise startles Nilce, causing her to turn toward the window with a look of surprise. Nilce opens her curtain to find Harvey hanging upside down outside her window, prompting her to ask who is there. Nilce scolds Harvey for climbing through the window, but he explains that the group is heading to town for staves. Harvey mentions a pancake place to entice her, but Nilce insists she will not leave after 6 years of isolation. Nilce shouts with sudden intensity, reiterating her firm and angry refusal to go out into the world. Nilce screams that she hates meeting people and only wants to stay home, demanding to know why he keeps pushing.
Harvey looks at Nilce with a surprised expression, wondering why she is asking such a simple question.
Harvey stands in the sunlit room and tells Nilce that they should go outside because spring is finally arriving.
Harvey offers a warm and gentle smile, his green eyes reflecting a sense of hope and new beginnings.
A cluster of delicate white and purple flowers bloom against a bright and airy background, signaling the change in seasons.
The group arrives in a bustling town square filled with vendors shouting about their freshly picked fruits and busy citizens.
Nilse, dressed in a stylish purple outfit, walks through the crowd and stops to inspect a wall of wanted posters. Nils carefully scans the various bounty notices, repeatedly confirming that her own face is not among the displayed criminals.
Nilse continues her search through the many posters, looking for any sign that she is still being hunted.
Nilse realizes with a shock of relief that she has finally been taken off the wanted list after 6 years.
Nils erupts into a celebratory cheer while the children watch her sudden outburst of joy with confused expressions.
Emily and Ram find Nilse's excitement over the wanted posters to be a very strange and confusing hobby.
Harvey offers Nilse a stick of candied fruit with a cheerful smile, hoping she will enjoy the local treat.
Nils is delighted by the delicious taste of the snack, her expression turning blissful as she eats. Emily examines a warrant for a man who only stole bread, wondering why such a minor crime has a poster.
Nilse concludes that the city must be very safe if petty thefts are the only major crimes being reported.
Ram eats his snack and notes that the city's quality of life improved significantly under a new leader after the church fell.
Nils watches the children with a soft and affectionate smile, enjoying the peaceful atmosphere of their outing.
The group continues their stroll through the charming town, heading toward their next destination while the sun shines brightly.
Emily and Ram feel self-conscious, whispering to each other that it feels like everyone in the street is staring.
Harvey and Nilse walk together with exceptional style, their impressive appearances drawing the attention of everyone nearby.
Ram urges the group to hurry up, noticing the crowd's focus as they make their way through the street.
The four friends sit down at a sun-drenched outdoor table to enjoy a hearty meal of soup and bread together.
Emily looks through a collection of magical staves in a shop, searching for the perfect one for her training.
Nilse strikes a playful pose with a pink, heart-shaped magical wand, winking as she shows it off to the children.
Harvey, Emily, and Ram stare at Nilse with completely deadpan and unimpressed expressions as she continues her magical girl pose.
Harvey clears his throat to get everyone's attention, looking slightly embarrassed by the scene. Harvey presents himself in a regal new white and gold outfit, posing confidently for his friends to see.
Nilse holds up a premium black card and tells the shopkeeper to wrap everything up, looking very wealthy and satisfied.
Nilse enthusiastically leads the group toward the next shop while the children struggle to carry a mountain of shopping bags.
Ram asks Harvey if they should stop Nilse before she buys everything, but Harvey simply replies that it is fine.
Nils surprises Emily with a toy box, noting she saved up for the special day. Nilse laughs with pure joy, her bright expression surrounded by a soft floral background.
Harvey watches Nilse, concluding that making her happy is more important than anything else.
Emily leads the group through town while Nilce snacks and refers to a map.
A rude man bumps into Emily, sparking a sudden and unpleasant confrontation in town.
Realizing her purse is gone, Emily stares ahead with a look of absolute horror.
The pickpocket flees into the crowd as people shout for him to stop running. Furious, Emily prepares to test her new magic staff on the man who robbed her.
The thief pleads for Emily to wait while she angrily commands him to shut up. Glowing yellow energy swirls around Emily's hand as she gathers her magical power together.
Emily unleashes a lethal spell while a system window warns that aggression has been detected.
Emily falls as her staff shatters, while the thief is trapped in a containment field.
Ram and Harvey rush to help Emily while she begs to be let out. Harvey asks Nilse for guidance while she stands with a dark and serious expression.
Nils stares ahead with intensity, her purple eyes reflecting a cold and calculated focus. Knights arrest George Moore for theft while Nils and the children watch the scene unfold.
A red-haired knight searches her papers, noting they have no information on the girl.
The knight orders the group of outsiders to come with her for further questioning.
Nilse demands to know why they are taking Emily when she committed no crime.
The knight complains about outsiders and decides to suggest tightening the city's entrance security immediately. The knight explains only the Order of Heimdall's Light has the right to use force.
The long-haired knight warns Nilse not to be rash or become an accomplice.
Nilse's hand glows as she questions the knight's authority with a cool, defiant tone.
Nils shatters the magical cage with one strike, surprising the knights and the children.
Nils stands with a calm and superior expression while the knights watch her warily. The long-haired knight whistles, noting Nilse shatters magic by overwhelming it with her power. Harvey and Ram watch as the knight explains Nilse's raw power broke the circuit. The red-haired knight stares in shock, realizing that Nilse is an incredibly powerful magician. The knight warns her partner Oliver to watch out as Nils suddenly vanishes away.
Oliver kneels before Nilse, expressing his sudden infatuation with her strength and great beauty. Nilse looks repulsed as Oliver begs her to grant him a very beautiful request.
Oliver shamelessly asks Nilse to stomp on his face, leaving everyone nearby completely stunned. Harvey suddenly charges forward at high speed, his boots kicking up dust as he moves.
Harvey kicks Oliver in the face, sending the knight flying back with significant force.
Harvey and Nilse stand ready for combat while the red-haired knight draws her muckin.
Harvey protectively shields Nilse, holding his sword with a fierce and unwavering determination.
The knight scolds Oliver for embarrassing their order while he tries to heal his face.
Magical light gathers around Oliver's hand as he begins to heal his wound with magic.
Nilse watches the display, noting that the man is a powerful magician like Harvey.
Nilse realizes that Oliver is a paladin, her eyes wide with a look of shock.
Ram frantically asks Emily what they should do as the dangerous confrontation begins.
Harvey keeps his sword drawn, standing guard over Nilce as the knights remain alert.
The long-haired knight stands ready to support his partner as they face their opponents.
The red-haired knight threatens to arrest the group as accomplices if they continue resisting.
Harvey's hand grips his sword as the blade begins to glow with a magical aura.
Ram asks Nilce for instructions while Harvey prepares to engage the knights in combat.
Nilce reflects on the danger of exposing her identity versus the need to protect Emily.
Nilce decides she has no choice and prepares to fight alongside Harvey against the knights.
The two groups clash in a sudden, chaotic blur while Ram tries to intervene.
The knight warns the civilians to stay clear while Ram notes the growing town crowd.
Ram argues that the knights should choose peace over causing more damage to the city square.
Nilce praises Ram for his social engineering skills while Harvey watches the exchange with a smile.
Ram urges Emily to apologize immediately to avoid further conflict with the suspicious city guards.
Emily and Ram bow deeply, begging the knights not to send them to the city jail.
Maria and Oliver exchange silent glances, considering the sincerity of the children's desperate and sudden apology. Maria decides to forgive their ignorance but requires the group to visit headquarters for further instruction.
Maria demands the whole group follow her while Chibi Nilce enthusiastically agrees to the knight's request.
Ram apologizes for the detour while Nilce admits this peaceful outcome is actually a significant improvement.
Nilce notes her growing interest in the mysterious order of Heimdall's Light as they walk together.
Emily thinks these knights are elite, comparing their strength to high-ranking captains of the past church.
Emily concludes Oliver only blocked Harvey's strike to test him, knowing Harvey would lose a fight.
Emily wonders about the origin of this group, noting their immense influence over the common people. Emily realizes the knight's capture magic was never mentioned in the original novel's established storyline.
Nilce worries that her past actions triggered a butterfly effect that made the future completely unpredictable.
The group arrives at a massive building as Nilce looks at it with a sense of apprehension. The children are awestruck by the sheer size of the library inside the Order's bustling headquarters.
Maria explains that they repurposed the church's former heretic prison into their current administrative base.
Maria confronts a repeat offender named George Moore who has been arrested for petty theft edem.
Maria expresses her deep disappointment in George as she previously believed he intended to change his ways.
Bound by ropes, George angrily defends his actions by citing the difficulties of having a record.
George explains he returned to thieving because no one would hire him to pay for medicine.
George claims officials don't care about commoners, prompting Maria to ask for non-discriminatory job openings.
Maria and her colleague discuss weaving but dismiss it because the equipment costs are too high.
Nilce suggests embroidery since buyers don't care about the maker, and Maria assigns him training.
George is stunned by the offer of medical aid for his mother and honest embroidery work.
The children observe the knight's unexpected kindness while George is led away by the city guards.
Emily and Ram are impressed by the benevolence shown to a desperate criminal by the knights.
Maria asks for the group's village details because they are not listed in the current registry.
A green-haired clerk processes Ram and Emily's registration as they provide their family and village histories.
Nilce panics internally, wondering how to explain her whereabouts for the past 6 years of isolation.
Harvey smiles confidently at Nilce while flowers bloom around him, signaling his supportive and warm presence.
Maria instructs the group to follow her for more paperwork once their official registration is complete.
Ram chases after Harvey, who is walking off with Nilce, and warns him about his lying. Ram questions Harvey's lie about their village, fearing they will be arrested for fraudulent registration. Harvey dismisses the risk, explaining the registry is too overwhelmed to verify everyone's specific village history.
Harvey notes that being too honest can be dangerous, as seen by their earlier interrogation.
Maria asks Emily about her father's origins, but the girl claims her dad is very private.
The clerk finds Emily's vagueness suspicious, but the girl insists she is telling the absolute truth.
Harvey encourages Ram to relax, emphasizing that their secrecy is a necessary part of their survival.
Harvey's eye narrows as he reflects on the hidden dangers surrounding their current and precarious situation.
Harvey makes a shushing gesture, telling Ram to keep their shared secrets safe for now. Emily collapses at a table, exhausted by the stress of being questioned about her father's history.
Nilce suggests studying the law to see George's potential sentence while Maria brings several heavy books.
Emily is horrified by the mountain of reading material Maria wants them to memorize immediately.
Maria clarifies they only need to be familiar with national law and the history of their order.
Maria plans to use Oliver's memoirs as firewood to heat up their tea, dismissing their historical value.
Nilce mentions her surprise at meeting a paladin like Oliver in such a small rural town.
Maria burns the memoirs in the fireplace, noting Nilce's own magical abilities suggest a high rank. Maria suspects Nilce was a prominent magician before the world was devastated by the legendary witch.
Maria explains that magicians are heavily restricted near the capital, forcing many into hiding elsewhere.
Maria explains the order is tough but tolerant, welcoming people from all different walks of life.
Maria offers a warm and gentle smile, admitting that she genuinely enjoys her life there. Maria teases Nilce about her interest in Oliver, while Nilce frantically denies any such romantic curiosity.
Nilce notes this group never appeared in the novel, likely due to Nihilus destroying the church.
Nilce focuses on her reading with a somber expression, framed by a soft and floral background. A magnificent white building glows under a sunset sky, surrounded by an ornate and golden frame.
A knight stands heroically on a wooden platform holding a flag high above a gathered crowd.
Oliver stands with his colleagues before a grand magical seal, his face partially obscured by shadows.
A close-up shows a hand resting on a parchment page filled with elegant and flowing handwriting. Chibi Nilse is shocked to learn that punishing children can result in being detained for days.
Emily reads the law against verbal abuse and wishes her own mother could see these rules.
Ram notes that malicious property damage carries a heavy sentence, worrying about his own sister's future.
Maria explains that minors receive community service instead, though Ram thinks the original sentence is fair.
Harvey wonders if the Guard Corps can keep up with such strict and demanding national laws. Maria admits their leader is a perfectionist who insists on following every rule strictly by the book.
Maria explains they need more people for legal outreach while Nilse and Ram listen with interest. Maria holds her teacup and prepares to offer a formal proposal to the group of travelers. Maria extends an inviting hand with a bright smile, looking elegant among the blooming white flowers.
Nilse raises a hand to firmly decline the offer while Emily reacts with sudden and intense panic.
Emily argues that being government officials would grant them the legal right to use offensive magic.
Maria suggests that the group can decide after meeting the Order's head of magic at headquarters. Maria points a finger at Harvey, clarifying that her recruitment proposal is actually meant for him. A flashback shows Oliver deliberately taking a hit during the earlier fight to test Harvey's talent. Oliver watches Harvey from a distance, remarking that they should not let such a promising boy escape. Maria smirks, telling Harvey he should deliver any rejection himself, since she is just a messenger.
Harvey stares ahead with a serious and determined expression, his green eyes reflecting a quiet focus.
Delicate yellow ginkgo leaves fall across a bright white space, signaling a peaceful transition in time. Maria leads the group into a stone training yard where several knights are busy practicing combat. Two knights engage in a fierce sparring match, their wooden weapons clashing with a loud thud.
Maria calls out that she has arrived with guests while Oliver turns to acknowledge their presence.
Oliver looks overjoyed, his eyes sparkling as he asks if the beautiful lady has finally arrived.
Oliver shamelessly greets Nilse as a gorgeous lady while Harvey watches the display with extreme irritation. A sharp noise startles Oliver, who notes he cannot lower his guard around Nilse for long. Maria steps on the back of a fallen Oliver while Harvey and Emily watch the scene.
Oliver asks Harvey to join the Order, but the boy refuses, claiming they cannot teach him.
Oliver challenges Harvey to a match, offering to fight using only one hand to test him.
A close-up reveals the intense and focused gaze of the blonde boy as the duel begins.
Harvey and Oliver face each other in the ruined stone arena with their wooden swords drawn.
Emily and Ram cheer loudly for Harvey, shouting for him to win against the skilled knight.
The two duelists clash in a chaotic whirlwind of motion, their swords creating a blur of speed. Harvey's green eye reflects his absolute concentration as he watches his opponent's every move with intensity.
A powerful gust of wind swirls around Oliver as he prepares a sudden and decisive combat maneuver.
Harvey leaps through the air toward Oliver, who watches the incoming strike with a calm expression.
Oliver acknowledges Harvey's great judgment as the duel reaches a critical and highly tense turning point.
Nils, Ram, and Emily watch the duel with wide eyes and looks of total and absolute surprise.
Harvey charges past Oliver at high speed, their movement leaving a trail of light across the arena.
Oliver holds his wooden sword to Harvey's neck, ending the match with a playful and confident smile.
Oliver notes Harvey's excellent physique is being wasted because he has never properly studied formal sword techniques. Oliver looks at Harvey with a meaningful and somber gaze, his expression partially hidden by the shadows.
Oliver offers a final encouraging thought, predicting it is only a matter of time before Harvey surpasses him.
Harvey asks Nilse if he can stay at the Order's headquarters to study the sword.
Nils asks if the request is meant for her, and Harvey confirms with a nod.
Nilse dramatically objects to Harvey's sudden desire to live away from their shared home.
Nilse argues the commute is too long and would waste far too much time traveling.
Nilse questions who will handle the household chores if Harvey is gone all day long. Nilse asks Harvey to consider the needs of others before doing whatever he wants. Nilse's expression softens as she begins to reconsider her initial rejection of Harvey's request.
Nils playfully pokes Harvey's forehead during their intense conversation about his future training plans.
Nilse tells Harvey that always obeying her will make him forget his own life's wishes. Nilse explains that Harvey has the absolute right to decide his own future path. Nilse admits she cannot ignore Harvey's future just for the sake of her own convenience. Nilse pats Harvey's head, encouraging him to pursue his goals if he truly wants. Nils offers a bright and genuine smile, supporting Harvey's decision to study the sword. Harvey blushes and thinks to himself that Nilse's sudden kindness is simply not fair.
Harvey enthusiastically declares he is leaving to begin his training with the skilled knights.
Maria and a colleague celebrate successfully luring Harvey into joining their organization's recruitment quota. Harvey promises to maintain his chores while Nilse decides to build a helpful teleportation array. Maria promises to install a teleportation array in their village to facilitate easier travel. Emily is impressed by the Order's advanced magic, noting it rivals Nilse's own creations. Maria leads the group through the library, crediting their head of magic for recent progress.
Maria mentions that their head of magic is currently struggling with a very tricky problem.
Maria explains that the strict laws of Heimdall are beginning to cause societal problems.
Maria describes a past where survival required petty crime, leading to many citizens becoming criminals.
Maria explains that imprisoning every petty criminal would cause society to stop functioning entirely.
Maria enthusiastically reveals that they have developed a clever plan to solve their legal issues.
Maria explains a plan to use a device that can alter a person's time perception. Maria explains prisoners will perceive months of time passing during only 3 days of jail.
Nilse realizes the device sounds like a remnant of her own past research into alchemy. Maria leads the group deeper into the headquarters, wondering if Nilse is their needed expert. Maria's loud greeting startles the chief, who accidentally falls off a ladder in the library.
Books and tea supplies fly into the air as the clumsy chief crashes behind a shelf.
Maria scolds the chief for being clumsy, insisting her assistants should handle all high-up tasks.
The chief argues she can handle minor tasks, though Maria emphasizes her immense value. A close-up shows Maria closing her eyes with a weary and slightly annoyed expression.
Maria introduces the clumsy young girl as the official head of the Magic Creation Division. Nils has a sudden flashback of a similar girl working alongside her in a laboratory. The girl, Makara Simon, smiles brightly while holding a book amidst a mountain of research.
Emily is completely shocked to discover that the head of magic is so young.
Ram suggests it would be a waste for a magician like Nilse to work with her far.
Nilse suddenly begins to weep, leaving the children and the knights completely stunned and confused.
Emily and Ram panic, wondering if Nilse is crying because she is away from Harvey. Emily hits Ram while trying to understand the reason behind Nilse's sudden and intense tears. Emily whispers that Nilse cries when she sees something sad, like a person's early death. A thought bubble describes heartbreaking goodbyes and a girl who supposedly will not live long. Ram and Emily react with horror while Maria watches the scene with a confused expression. Nils smiles through her tears, realizing that for once, she does not feel lonely. A flashback shows Neely sparing everyone's sins to save her companions from a tragic fate. Nils offers a warm smile, feeling happy to have found something she once thought lost. Makara asks Maria if finding something once lost is the source of such great joy. Maria asks for an update on the experiment while Makara apologizes for the lack of progress. Makara weeps openly, apologizing for her perceived uselessness and admitting her deep regret over accepting the position. Maria realizes Makara's social anxiety is flaring and frantically searches for a way to distract her. Maria shifts the focus by enthusiastically beginning to introduce Nilse as a potential new assistant. Maria is horrified to see Nilse is also crying while the children watch the awkward display. Makara assumes Nilse is upset because of her and offers to let the group leave immediately.
Maria wonders if the two were related in a past life given their identical, sensitive temperaments.
Nilse lies about sand in her eyes, privately noting that Makara is still remarkably timid. Makara remains hunched over and trembling, her anxiety clearly getting the better of her. Nilse successfully diverts the girl's attention by asking her to craft a specific calming perfume. Nilse explains a complex recipe but notes a dangerous side effect that can intensify a person's emotions.
Makara is stunned into silence when Nilse suggests incorporating the plant's branches and leaves into the potion.
Chibi Makara questions the logic, fearing the addition of branches would ruin the potion's delicate balance. Nilse explains that grinding the entire plant into a fine powder would stabilize and enhance the effects. Maria breathes a sigh of relief as Makara becomes completely absorbed in the new research project.
Maria watches them work, wondering why Nilse handles the awkward head of magic with such ease.
Emily watches the two bond over alchemy with a somber and increasingly jealous expression. A close-up shows Emily's hand reaching out to grab Nilse's sleeve with a firm grip. Emily protectively hugs Nils, confusing both the brown-haired boy and the startled head of magic.
Makara takes a moment to sniff a finished vial, her expression becoming calm and focused.
Feeling better, Makara finally welcomes the group properly and asks for their names and origins. Maria identifies them as capable suspects and explains she brought them specifically to assist with research. Emily remains skeptical, doubting that a girl so young could truly be a master of magic. Emily is shocked by the girl's sudden intensity as they sit down to discuss official business. A flashback reveals Makara was the least gifted child in a family of legendary high-ranking magicians. The memory shows a young Makara being sent away with a single suitcase after failing expectations.
Young Makara stands alone before the crumbling ruins of the church, having nowhere else to go.
Makara explained she was too afraid to return home until the Order's leader offered her sanctuary. Makara finds purpose in helping others and takes pride in the magical devices she has created. Makara speaks with a humble smile, though she still seems to doubt her own significant achievements. Chibi Maria aggressively validates Makara, insisting that her contributions to the Order are actually quite brilliant. Makara offers a gentle, blushing smile, finally beginning to feel a sense of pride in herself.
Makara admits that being exiled was a blessing because she truly loves her new life here.
Nils watches her with a knowing smirk, clearly satisfied by the growth of her former companion.
Makara apologizes for her rambling and prepares to guide the group through their current research facilities.
Makara presents a document outlining the 4 distinct divisions of their magic research for the group.
The first 2 divisions focus on simplifying basic spells and creating alchemy-based tools for common citizens. The 3rd division enchants knights' weapons, significantly boosting the combat effectiveness of their elite fighting squads. Makara leads them to a massive locked door to reveal the Order's most ambitious secret project. The group enters a vast, starry observatory containing a massive and incredibly complex magical structure. Nils stares in horror at a glowing floor array designed specifically to manipulate and reverse time. Makara explains that perfecting this forbidden array would grant all of humanity the gift of immortality.
Makara looks back with a bright, hopeful expression while bathed in the glow of the array. A close-up of Nilsa's eyes shows her utter shock at the dangerous scale of their research.
Emily gasps at the mention of eternal life while Makara begins explaining the facility's dark history.
Makara recounts finding the unfinished array while clearing the rubble of the church's former secret laboratory.
Makara dreams of freeing humanity from death, allowing them to live as long as the elves.
Emily asks if they are practicing dark magic, but Makara argues that magic itself is neutral.
Makara challenges Emily to consider how those being transformed perceive the magic used upon their bodies.
Makara explains that the perception of good and evil changes based on time and political perspective.
Historical records show that many misunderstood spells eventually became the foundation for modern and accepted magic.
Makara assures Nilsi the project is royal approved and legal despite any initial misconceptions. Makara grasps Nilsi's hands while expressing her hope for the woman's future support. Nilsi feels a sudden jolt of magic or emotion while touching the girl's hand.
Nilsi lowers her head, hiding her face as she reflects on the girl's request.
A flashback depicts a young Neelis happily studying magic before the harsh reality set in. Blood stains the ground, marking the moment Neelis' hopeful dreams were replaced by tragedy.
Accusing hands point at the isolated girl as she struggles under immense pressure and stress.
Neelis is forced to perform unethical experiments on innocent people within a high-tech facility.
Neelis weeps over a dying Makara while a mysterious red-haired woman walks away calmly. Nilsi looks away with a somber expression, haunted by memories of her previous life. Makara and a colleague discuss providing eternal life to greedy nobles through their research. Makara offers a bright and innocent smile, unaware of the potential danger she faces. Nilsi's eyes widen in realization as she senses a familiar and sinister presence nearby. A red ghostly entity named Mammon mocks Nilsi for not killing the girl immediately. Nils demands that Mammon stop speaking, trying to maintain her composure in the moment.
Mammon questions why Nilse returned if not to destroy the revival of the Immortality Project.
The ghost urges Nilsi to repeat her past and drown the city in blood. A vision of a screaming, fire-consumed witch emphasizes the destruction the ghost desires. Nils argues against attacking now, fearing a premature strike would create a new church.
Nilse remains silent and focused, her expression grim as she listens to the entity's taunts.
Nilse dismisses the immediate threat, claiming the young researcher lacks the talent to succeed alone.
Nils kneels over a glowing magical circle, inspecting the foundations of the current research project.
Nils notes the research is failing because the girl cannot decipher the ancient, unrefined spells. Nilsi suspects a hidden mastermind is manipulating the girl like a puppet for their own ends.
Nils observes Makara from a distance, deciding her next move in this dangerous game.
Nilsi determines that she must find a way to extract more information from Makara directly. Nilse suddenly grabs Makara's shoulder, startling the young woman with her intense and sudden grip.
Nils imagines revealing her true identity and demanding to know who commissioned the immortality research.
Makara panics in Nilse's imagination, promising to reveal everything she knows about the secret project.
Chibi Nilse realizes that her aggressive interrogation plan is far too risky to actually execute. Harvey and Emily watch the two women talk while someone calls out to Nilse from afar.
A drunken Oliver clings to Harvey, apologizing for his late arrival to the group's meeting. The group gathers in the garden as Emily asks Oliver about his disheveled and drunken state. Harvey complains that Oliver abandoned their training session just to go drinking alone in town.
Oliver invites Makara to drink with him, but the girl politely declines his loud offer.
Nilse realizes that alcohol is the perfect tool to lower the timid girl's social defenses.
Nilse plans to host a party and use the old trick of getting someone drunk.
Makara refuses the party invitation, claiming that alcohol would interfere with her important research tasks. Nilse manipulates the girl by pretending to be deeply hurt and crying over the rejection. Makara immediately changes her mind to please Nilse, while Nilse secretly smirks at the result. Harvey watches the interaction with a look of utter confusion and disbelief at Nilse's acting.
Makara begins chugging a large mug of ale as the party gets underway in earnest.
Nils encourages Makara to drink more while Oliver lies completely unconscious on the tavern bench.
Nilse agrees with a somber tone as she prepares to probe the girl for secrets. A blushing Makara admits that she only wanted to be close to Nilse from the start. Nils pauses, wondering why Makara is acting so friendly if Nils was the time traveler. Makara leans on her new friend, expressing how much she values having an important mission.
Makara mumbles about her desperate need to succeed before drifting off into a drunken sleep.
Makara falls asleep on Nilse's lap while the black-haired woman looks at her with concern.
Nilse gazes into the distance, pondering the weight of the girl's words and her own future. Nilse reflects on her perceived failure as a teacher during both the past and present. A flashback reveals a young Makara weeping over failed research while her teacher watches silently. Makara smiles brightly amidst blooming lilies, representing a happier time before her current struggles. Nilse stands alone in the dimly lit library, her expression solemn as she begins her search. A creak echoes through the silent room as someone enters the area where others sleep. A wooden sign identifies the archive room where the organization's most sensitive documents are kept.
Nils searches the shelves for a staff list, hoping to uncover spies within the magic division. Nilse examines a handwritten document, searching for any leads regarding the mysterious people she recognized.
A boot enters the frame as Nilse is caught snooping through the organization's private records.
Nils panics as she realizes someone has discovered her while she was searching the archives.
Nilse is startled to find Harvey standing at the door, questioning why he is there.
Narration describes how public arrest warrants for the witch were stopped despite the horrific crimes committed.
Nilse realizes a brainwashing spell helped preserve her identity by altering people's memories of the witch.
Nilse feels relief that her identity remains safe since the public only remembers a fiery-haired devil.
Nils notes the official report is surprisingly fair in its criticism of both the witch and church.
Nils pauses to consider the implications of the information she just discovered within the old report.
A sharp demand for an explanation rings out as the tension in the room reaches a peak. Harvey looks down at the scattered papers, waiting for Nilse to explain her suspicious late-night activities. Nilse curses her bad luck, wondering why Harvey appeared just as she found what she needed. Nilse quickly hides a book, determined to fool Harvey so she can maintain her secret mission.
Nilse feigns innocence and laughs, claiming she only returned to find an item she left behind.
Harvey continues to approach Nilse, asking for more details about the specific object she was seeking.
Harvey looks skeptical as he presses Nilse for the identity of the item she's supposedly lost.
Nilse suggests she forgot her staff or purse, but Harvey debunks both excuses with factual evidence.
Harvey asks if Nilse can explain her behavior once they have finally returned to their home.
A close-up shows Nilse sweating and looking away, unable to provide a convincing lie to Harvey.
Nils begs Harvey for understanding, her expression filled with desperation as she tries to avoid confrontation.
Harvey gives Nilse a piercing look that reminds her of the day she once left him.
A flashback shows a shadowed figure restraining a young, crying Harvey as Nilse departs into exile. Harvey embraces Nilse, admitting his hurt over her refusal to share her secrets with him.
Harvey asks if Nilse has met the head of magic before, suspecting a deep hidden connection.
Harvey reveals he has spent 6 years waiting for Nilse to reveal her true, authentic self.
Harvey asks Nilse to finally share her pain with him and be honest about her identity. A memory shows a younger Harvey watching Nilse work, admiring her dedication from a distance. Young Harvey brings Nilse treats, hoping she will eventually see him as her equal and partner. Nilse hesitates, her eyes reflecting the immense internal struggle of whether to finally trust someone. Harvey reminds Nilse that no one can survive alone and begs her to listen to him. Harvey offers a gentle, encouraging smile while promising to stay by Nilse's side forever.
Nilse appears stunned by Harvey's devotion, her mouth slightly open as she processes his emotional confession.
Nilse realizes with a soft smile that despite the many years, Harvey never forgot their bond. A sepia flashback shows Nilse leading a young Harvey away from a scene of domestic distress.
Nils and young Harvey seal their bond with a pinky promise during a quiet, shared moment. Nilse reflects that meeting Makara again has made her retreat into her cold, defensive witch persona.
Nils stands as a solitary figure, the shadow of her dark and tattered past looming behind her.
Harvey uses a magical glow to levitate the secret book Nilse tried to hide from him.
Harvey examines the retrieved book, his expression serious as he begins to uncover Nils's hidden research.
Nilse closes her eyes in defeat, her expression pained as her carefully guarded secrets are exposed.
Nilse enters a restricted area to discover a truth that leaves her completely and utterly shocked. A man resembling Harvey is shown bound and drugged in a medieval-style interrogation chair.
Nils stands before the captive man, realizing the horrific scale of the experiments being conducted here.
Nils asks Harvey if he remembers the group Tartarus that kidnapped him long ago.
Nilse explains Tartarus worked for the church to create shadow guards from talented children.
Nils reveals the kidnapping was part of the eternal life plan Makara now studies.
Narration describes the ancient legends where humans were originally meant to enjoy eternal life. Witches with red hair and innate magic sought to become equal to the sun god.
The sun god refused, leading witches to steal eternal life by tricking true believers.
The church was founded on hatred for witches, becoming more powerful than the royal family.
As magic and alchemy advanced, the church's power faded, necessitating a plan for revival. A researcher within the church gave birth to a child with immense magical potential. The child, Nilis Glarel, could cast advanced magic without a staff or any incantations. Despite her real name, everyone within the church referred to the gifted girl as Witch. A young Nilis runs through a doorway, leaving the blossoms and bright sunlight behind. The black-haired girl hurries through the grand hallway, her long braids swaying behind her. Nilis bursts into a room with a bright greeting for her designated partner. A blonde boy sits bound and chained to a large chair connected to IV lines. The boy stares with a glowing green eye, startling the young Nilis into an eep. Nilis asks if he is acclimating yet, privately thinking the boy is incredibly terrifying. Nilis's first partner was a silent paladin whose vocal cords were destroyed by magical parasites. A black-gloved hand chokes the blonde boy while nobody bothered to care for his thoughts. Nilis persists in communicating, suggesting the boy write down anything he wants to say.
The boy stares blankly with green eyes as Nilis searches for something to write with.
Neelis smiles warmly and offers her own palm as a substitute for paper and pen. Neelis asks if he thinks this game would be fun, encouraging the restrained boy's participation. The boy slowly raises his finger to write on the young girl's open palm.
The boy traces a message onto Neelis's hand, finishing with a gentle, lingering touch. A close-up shows Neelis's shocked expression as she processes the boy's unexpected written message.
Neelis laughs heartily, mockingly asking him what he can do other than just deal with it.
Surrounded by sunflowers, Neelis sits beside the chained boy and chats with him cheerfully.
Neelis prepares a syringe, informing him that she is increasing his dosage for today's session.
The boy's hand grips the wooden arm of his chair in anticipation of the pain.
Neelis warns him it might hurt while the boy watches with a look of dread.
Holding the syringe, Neelis offers a bright smile and tells him to stay strong.
Thorny vines surround a title card identifying the substance as the blood of a witch.
A splash of red liquid illustrates the extraction or application of the potent witch's blood.
Narration explains a few drops of this blood can boost a body past natural limits. The blood amplifies magic for magicians and significantly improves combat efficiency for specialized warriors. The church used Neelis's body as a vessel, feeding her potions to transform her blood. By age 14, Neelis's blood successfully transformed a paladin squad into lethal shadow guards. These guards became a dominant force, exerting pressure on both the military and the monarchy.
The success came with a price, as countless soldiers died in agony from bodily rejection. A researcher strikes Neelis with a book, shouting about the soldiers screaming in total agony.
The man demands to know where her humanity is while colleagues restrain his angry outburst. Neelis is struck speechless by the accusation, her face marked by the blow of the book.
Neelis argues that sacrifice is inevitable for history, and they must use these deaths well.
The researcher shouts back that they are humans, not objects to be used and discarded.
The man grabs Neelis, insisting every human is born with inherent dignity and basic rights.
He continues his tirade, stating that nobody, including Neelis herself, is born to be sacrificed.
The man is dragged away while screaming for Neelis to be removed from the facility.
Back in the present, Nilsi stands solemnly beside Harvey in the dimly lit library archive.
Nils explains that despite her talent, the church viewed her as nothing more than a tool.
The researcher tells Neelis not to worry about Helen's words, blaming them on stress.
Neelis asks why they call the boy that, while the man responds with confusion.
Neelis lists several common names while asserting that everyone deserves to have an identity.
Neelis wonders why she is nameless, leaving the researcher desperate for a believable excuse.
The researcher claims that she is too special to require a name like common people. A different person asks if it is finally time to give the young girl a name.
Colleagues argue that their current labels are inconvenient, but others strongly refuse the request.
The researcher explains that naming her would cause them to develop unwanted empathy for her.
He notes that forming a bond would make disposing of her far too difficult later.
A close-up shows Neelis's solemn expression as she absorbs the cruelty of her environment.
Flowing vines and leaves mark a transition into a rare moment of peace outdoors.
Young Neelis peeks through the tall grass, her gaze fixed on someone in the distance.
A blond boy stands alone under the shade of a large tree, his back turned.
Neelis offers a morning greeting and asks the silent boy how he's feeling today.
Neelis rushes to his side with a smile, asking if he is in any pain. Neelis presents her open palms, encouraging the boy to write whatever message he wants there.
The boy looks down at her hands, his face shrouded in a heavy, silent shadow.
The boy reaches out to trace his thoughts on her hand with a lingering touch.
The boy's hollow gaze haunts her as the narration confirms he will never respond again.
Neelis laments that the current tragedy is entirely her fault as the sun filters through leaves.
Neelis weeps over her hands, her expression filled with intense regret for her past actions. Narration notes that several years remained before her eventual decision to betray the entire church.
The scene shifts to the dark exterior of the archive building under a starry night.
Neelis recalls meeting Makara after fleeing, though the girl no longer has any memory of her. Now in the library, Neelis admits she cannot forget the man's vacant and hollow eyes.
A close-up of Neelis's eyes shows her lingering trauma as she continues dreaming of him.
Neelis uses her magic to snap the book shut, signaling the end of her research. Neelis confirms she has successfully copied the name list and the official report on the witch. Neelis decides to make her escape while Makara is still away from the archiver.
Neelis suddenly pauses to ask what the name of that man from her past was.
Harvey stands beside her as Neelis repeats her question about the mysterious man's identity.
Chibi, Nilsi, and Harvey stand together while he looks at her with a confused expression.
Neelis realizes she never mentioned the transmigration or his true name to the blonde man.
Chibi Neelis struggles to find a simple way to explain the complex truth to Harvey.
Nilse dismisses the topic while Harvey warns he will eventually discover the truth himself.
A close-up shows Nilse's soft expression as she whispers Harvey's name under her breath.
Neelis asks Harvey if he perceives her as a cruel and vicious woman for her past.
Chibi Harvey is confused by the question, wondering why she would even suggest such a thing. Harvey insists that the church bears the responsibility for the disasters, not Neelis herself.
Harvey offers a gentle smile, promising that he would never feel any hatred toward her. A close-up of Neelis's eye captures her profound shock at Harvey's unconditional and sincere kindness. Neelis offers a soft, genuine smile and simply accepts his words with a quiet agreement.
Shards of painful memories illustrate the long and lonely nights she suffered before her atonement.
Harvey waits for Nilce at the threshold of a bright doorway, welcoming her back. Harvey asks if she suspects a spy, and Nilce confirms her plan to investigate Makara's associates. Text appearing over the bright, open sky declares that she is no longer alone. Bright sunlight illuminates the lush green canopy as the heavy atmosphere finally begins to lift. Nilce clutches the report to her chest, privately admitting that its contents are deeply painful.
Nilce offers a radiant morning greeting, her face lit by a newfound sense of peace.
Chibi, Nilce, and Emily sit together at a tavern table as the party atmosphere continues.
Makara apologizes for getting drunk while Nilce tells the researcher to lower her loud voice. Chibi Makara vomits a rainbow while Chibi Nilce watches the messy display with an annoyed expression. Nilce offers rest, but Makara refuses to set a bad example by skipping her departmental work. Nilce introduces herself as a new colleague and asks to be taken to meet the team. Emily complains about feeling like a grandma while Nilce and Makara appear recovered from their drinking.
Emily notices a new earring on Nilce and teasingly asks which handsome man gave it to her.
Nilce touches her earring while Emily and Makara lean in with curiosity about its origin.
In a flashback, Nilce tells Harvey that bringing Emily will look less suspicious than traveling with him.
Chibi Nilce lies to her friends, claiming she bought the earrings at a market long ago. Emily finds the market story boring, while Makara thinks the jewelry really suits Nilce's appearance. Makara mentions others find her old-fashioned and wishes she were as fashionable as Nilce. Emily asks if Makara's subordinates listen to her since she is the head of the division.
A hand reaches for the dark wooden handle of a door as someone prepares to enter.
Makara opens the door while expressing hope that Nilce won't be disappointed by what lies inside. Inside, Gale and Rena argue loudly about their records while Nilce and the others watch. Gale insults Rena for her department's performance while Rena aggressively challenges him to a fight.
Gale and Rena continue their loud shouting match, completely ignoring Makara and the new group.
An ominous, shadowy Nilce demands to know if they can get anything done without constant fighting.
Nilce looks on with surprise while a close-up shows Makara's finger pointed as she speaks up.
Narrator notes that the usually timid Makara is actually telling her difficult colleagues that she is upset. Makara scolds the bowing Gale and Rena in the cluttered device-filled workspace of the Magic Division. Narrator observes that Makara genuinely trusts Gale and Rena despite their frequent and loud arguments. Makara smiles and apologizes for the scene, claiming that Gale and Rena are actually very close.
Nilce asks if Makara is sure as Gale and Rena resume their angry glares in the background.
A close-up of Nilce's intense purple-eyed gaze reveals her focused suspicion as she evaluates the group.
Narrator profiles Gale as an academy graduate and Rena as a demoted commoner researcher from the military.
Nilce notes the arrival of a different man while he carries a tea set into the room.
Narrator introduces Modri, the head of magic apparatus, as a hard-working veteran who rose from the bottom.
Emily is struck by Modri's handsome appearance and wonders if he is from the distant east.
Nilce finds it strange that the man makes no sound at all while he is walking.
Nilce observes Gale and Rena still arguing while Modri maintains a calm and smiling demeanor.
Through the communication earring, Harvey's voice comes through asking Nilce if she can hear his signal.
Harvey watches training while asking Nilce about the situation regarding the 3 department heads she met.
Nilce tells Harvey that she cannot determine if the 3 heads are truly normal or abnormal.
Suspect backgrounds identify Gale from the Capitol, Rena from the military, and the suspicious clean record Modri.
Harvey asks if Nilce found any useful clues from the regular members of the Magic Division.
Harvey reports that according to Oliver, all major decisions are controlled by Makara and the heads.
Niels looks into a tea reflection and concludes that the spy must be one of those 3.
Nilce stands before portraits of Gale, Rena, and Modri, determined to unmask the traitor among them.
Makara opens the door to the Magic Division's library, leading Nilce inside to begin her work. Emily exclaims that the library is incredibly cramped, with books and papers piled high everywhere.
Nils tells Makara she is fine with the conditions after the researcher apologizes for the mess.
Nils privately admits that the library, filled with the church's research, is exactly what she wanted. Emily asks Nilce to join them to see more rooms, but Nilce stays behind to tidy. The door shuts with a sharp click, leaving Nilce alone to start her secret library investigation. Nils stands at a desk, surrounded by flowers and sunlight, as she begins reviewing the documents.
As evening falls, a weary-looking Nilce continues to sift through the mountains of various research books.
Chibi Nilce yawns widely as the exhausting task of reading through the archives takes its toll.
Nilce reflects that without the witch's blood, the reports are just trivial experiments with no value.
Nilce's hand brushes over the text of an old book as she discovers something noteworthy. Nilce turns away from a bookshelf, her long dark braids swaying as she exits the library. Nilce scans the high shelves of the archives, selecting a thick volume with a focused expression. Nilce's eyes light up with recognition as she realizes she has finally found the correct book.
Chibi Modri surprises Nilce by handing her the book, prompting her to offer a polite thanks.
A sudden, loud shout from behind startles Chibi Nilce, causing her to jump in genuine fright.
Modri brings a finger to his lips, playfully urging Nilce to maintain silence in the quiet library.
Nilce stares at the smiling man, frustrated by his uncanny ability to sneak up on her unnoticed.
Madri questions Nilce's sudden interest in the old church legends regarding the elusive and powerful sun god.
Nilce claims she is simply a curious believer, causing Modri to apologize for questioning her personal faith.
Modri mentions his foreign origins while sharing a homeland proverb about humans being masters of their destiny.
Nilce asks about his lack of faith, but Modri explains he respects those following the god's will.
Modri describes faith as a mirror for unattainable dreams, while fears are often projected onto hated witches.
Modri offers a warm and gentle smile, his expression momentarily masking his deeper and more complex thoughts.
Nilce watches him with intense suspicion, wondering if his offer of help is actually a calculated test.
Modri sits at his cluttered desk surrounded by piles of various ancient documents and glass bottles.
Modri discusses the legends of eternal life and the church's dark efforts to modify the human body.
Modri suggests that many legends are actually based on historical facts that were romanticized over several generations.
Modri identifies eternal life as the stolen time magic as visuals of gears and a witch appear.
Modri points out that the magical array in Makara's room confirms his theories on the church's research.
Nilce's face pales with shock as she processes the terrifying implications of the man's profound magical knowledge.
Modri characterizes the secret project as a massive threat to the safety of the entire known world.
Modri warns that while time magic offers eternal life, its misuse could lead to total, irreversible catastrophe.
Madri places a firm hand on Nilce's shoulder, increasing the tension between them in the silent room.
Leaning in close, Modri whispers about the legendary witch who is responsible for the church's total destruction.
Modri suggests the witch might have traveled from the future, leaving Nilce paralyzed by a sudden, intense fear.
Intense close-ups highlight Nilce's mounting terror and Modri's calm, observant purple eyes as their gazes finally lock. Nilce instinctively takes several steps back, desperate to create some distance between herself and the mysterious man.
Nilce's internal monologue races as she questions why this man is revealing such dangerous and specific information.
Nilce wonders if he is testing her, fearing he has already discovered her secret identity and past.
A close-up of Nilce's clenched fist illustrates the immense pressure and anxiety she feels in this moment.
Chibi Mordri laughs off his theories as mere guesses, jokingly suggesting he would use time magic to scam people.
The conversation shifts toward the fascinating possibilities of magic and an invitation to join the basic department.
Modri extends an open hand with a cheerful invitation while Chibi Nilce remains completely baffled by his behavior. Reina bursts through the door with a loud shout, urgently calling for her teacher to finish his work. The sudden arrival of Reina and her colleague interrupts the intense and private conversation between Nilce and Modri. The girl with glasses aggressively scolds Modri for slacking off on his duties yet again in the library.
The assistant continues her angry tirade, threatening to cut his department's funding if his behavior does not improve.
Modri is dragged away while waving and encouraging Nilce to consider his offer to join the magic department.
Reina demands to know the subject of their private talk while Nilce stands frozen with a grim expression.
A peaceful scenery shot of green leaves against a soft sky marks a brief transition in the story. Nilce stands beneath a large tree at sunset, communicating with Harvey about the suspicious foreigner she just met.
Nilce explains that the man's information matches her findings, making him her primary suspect for the spy's identity. Harvey listens from a training ground, expressing his doubts about the foreigner being the actual spy they seek. Harvey argues that a real spy would try to blend in rather than openly discuss sensitive church history.
Harvey finds it difficult to doubt a man who is so openly expressive with his colleagues and thoughts.
Harvey notes that the man had plenty of opportunities to attack while they were alone, but did nothing. Harvey admits his evaluation is based on intuition while the sun sets behind the ruined arches of training.
Harvey offers to accompany her, but Nilce insists she can handle the situation while remaining connected through magic. Falling leaves and swaying branches create a melancholic atmosphere as Nilce continues her solitary walk through the grounds. Nilce walks across a balcony with determination, reaffirming her confidence in her own ability to defend herself alone.
Nilce's internal unease grows, leaving her feeling as though a disaster is looming close. As she reaches for the door, the premonition that something is about to happen intensifies. Nilce enters the library to find a girl holding a letter, prompting a surprised exclamation. The girl stands startled by Nilce's entrance while clutching a sealed letter against a floral background. The stranger apologizes for her intrusion and identifies herself as Irene from the Weapon Enchantment Department.
Irene explains she brought a letter for Chief Makara and Nilce accepts it with a polite smile.
Irene presents a vial containing an astral vine seed, noting it is an odd purchase for Makara.
Nilce's face pales as she detects the scent of blood emanating from the strange astral vine. Sensing immediate danger, Nilce lunges at Irene with a panicked shout as the vial begins reacting.
A close-up shows the vial of blue liquid just before the supernatural containment fails completely.
Thorny green vines erupt violently from the broken glass, surging with sudden and destructive magical force. Nilce shields Irene with her own body while the massive vines tear through the library walls. A massive explosion of debris and smoke marks the total destruction of the library's internal structure.
At the training grounds, Harvey stops his sword practice, looking back toward the sound of disaster.
Harvey's eyes widen in shock as he realizes the explosion came from the archives direction.
Abandoning his weapon, Harvey sprints away while a purple-haired girl asks where he is going.
Massive thorns burst through the roof as Nilse and Irene huddle amidst the library's wreckage.
Nilse stares in horror as a thorn pierces her hand, tightly wrapping around her bleeding arm.
The unnatural plant actively absorbs Nilse's blood, pulsing with a sinister and dark magical energy.
A close-up of Nilse's purple eyes captures her dawning realization regarding the true nature of the trap.
Several pairs of feet race toward the site of the explosion, kicking up clouds of dust.
Karina, Makara, and Emily arrive at the smoking ruins, coughing and calling out for their friends.
Shadows and embers swirl around the towering, blood-soaked vines that have completely overtaken the room.
Karina looks into the devastation, urgently asking if the two girls inside are still alive.
The group realizes the doorway is blocked while Nilse recalls her earlier conversation with the researcher.
Nilse finally understands why the man refrained from attacking her during their private meeting earlier.
Determined to escape, Nilse prepares her own magic while focusing on her glowing, outstretched hand. A sense of overwhelming fear consumes the room as the survivors struggle against the supernatural vines.
Nilse tells the trembling Irene to hold on while she tries to stop the encroaching thorns. Irene weeps in total terror, her wide blue eyes pleading for someone to save her life.
Nilse holds Irene close, offering what little comfort she can while the building continues to crumble. The vines begin to retreat toward the exit, making Nilse fear they will escape the scene.
Fragments of bloody and tragic memories flicker through the air like ghosts from Nilse's dark past.
With a powerful swing, Harvey shatters the debris, blocking the way to the trapped girls. Harvey stands atop the rubble, shouting Nilse's name while the others reach the library's threshold. Spotting her companion through the smoke, Nilse calls out to Harvey with a desperate, relieved shout. Harvey commands the group to pursue the retreating vines before they can vanish into the distance.
Nilse screams in fury, realizing the true objective of the attack was to steal her blood.
Harvey leaps through the shattered ceiling, determined to hunt down the magically controlled astral vines. Karina orders Emily to assist the survivors while she rushes to follow Harvey into the woods.
Emily reaches out to support Nilse, who looks physically and emotionally drained by the violent ordeal.
Irene continues to tremble in shock as Emily tries to calm her following the terrifying attack. Nilse watches them, suspecting that this plot is the work of a much larger, organized group.
Harvey sprints through the dense forest, tracking the movements of the vines beneath the sunlit canopy.
Harvey recognizes the plant life, noting they are identical to the astral vines from his homeland.
Recalling Nilse's teachings about vine bonding, Harvey realizes someone is using her blood to control them.
Splashing through a stream, Harvey maintains his high-speed pursuit of the retreating, thorny, magical entity. Harvey expertly slashes through the air, cutting down the thorns that attempt to block his path. Harvey realizes his wooden training sword is insufficient to stop the damage caused by the vines.
Nilse's silent plea echoes in Harvey's mind as he chases the thieves through the forest path.
Harvey leaps forward with intense determination, his green eyes focused on the path ahead. Raina shouts a desperate warning for the boy to stop as he nears the cliffside. Massive thorny vines surge across the rocky ground, chasing after the fleeing blonde man.
A horrified Raina watches the scene unfold, screaming in terror as the situation turns dire.
Harvey plunges off the massive cliff, followed closely by the relentless glowing blue thorns.
Gritting his teeth in a close-up, Harvey braves the dangerous fall with unwavering resolve.
In a flashback, Makara runs through a sunlit corridor, clutching a stack of research papers.
Makara calls out excitedly to her teacher while holding the documents she worked so hard on.
Neelise sits exhausted among the debris of her laboratory, surrounded by bird cages and scattered notes. A close-up of Neelis reveals her sunken, tired eyes and the toll of her obsession.
Makara presents her findings on slowing wound deterioration, hoping to impress her mentor with the data.
Neelis studies the report with a cold, piercing gaze, her expression growing increasingly dark.
Neelis dismisses the research as useless, explaining it fails to actually extend the subject's life.
Makara pleads for another chance, offering more refined studies for the dismissive teacher to review.
Exploding in sudden rage, Neelis shouts her rejection while violently scattering Makara's precious research papers.
Makara stands frozen in shock, her face pale as she faces her teacher's terrifying outburst. Neelis retreats into herself on the floor, begging to be left alone with her research.
Gripping her arms tightly, Neelis trembles as her composure completely shatters in the silent room.
Embers drift through the dark air, reflecting the somber and heavy mood of the night.
Makara treats Neelis' wounded hand while Karina watches the quiet, tense scene with deep concern.
Karina privately reflects on how the usually composed Neelis has never had such an outburst.
Memories of Neelis' usual calm contrast sharply with the current image of her screaming and fear.
Biting her thumb nervously, Neelis wonders about the secret properties hidden within her own blood.
Makara and Karina press for answers about the disaster, but Neelis remains trapped in her thoughts.
Makara admits she sensed Neelis was burdened, but initially chose not to pry into her secrets.
The two friends watch Neelis closely, waiting for her to find the words to explain herself. Makara declares that she can no longer ignore the major incidents occurring within her own division.
Makara's face hardens with newfound resolve as she prepares to face the coming challenges.
Karina shouts with fiery passion, determined to support her friends no matter the cost.
Both girls plead with Neelis to let them help her carry the weight of her burden.
A dark memory shows Neelis facing an angry mob that labels her as a hated witch.
A tearful woman aims a gun, vowing to stop the witch from killing another innocent person.
Neelis weeps over her blood-stained hands while a soft voice offers her a moment of comfort.
A gentle reminder appears, urging her not to bear all of her pain by herself. Harvey offers a warm and supportive smile, looking at Neelis with total acceptance and kindness.
Neelis responds with a soft, genuine smile, finally feeling the comfort of not being alone. Looking up at her friends, Neelis warns them that a major disaster might strike very soon.
Neelis's eyes glow with intense purple light as she prepares to confront the looming magical threat.
3 days later, a search party moves through the dark woods, calling out for the missing Harvey.
Gale expresses his growing fear that Harvey is dead, much to Rena's angry and vocal disagreement.
Gale argues that such a fall would leave anyone dead, wondering where a survivor could hide.
A sharp, thorny vine suddenly pierces Gale's leg, causing him to cry out in sudden pain.
Gale stares in shock at the blue vine, confused by how it snared him so quickly.
Gale calls out to Rena for help, unaware of the grim state of his companion nearby.
Rena stands paralyzed, blood pouring from her mouth as her eyes bulge in a terrifying expression.
A cold voice whispers from the shadows, declaring that the weak will only be a burden.
Back in the library, Makara stands alone amidst piles of books and the division's complex equipment.
Makara begins picking up the scattered papers, her focus returning to the research she once abandoned.
Harsh voices from Makara's past echo, calling her a mediocre and useless child of no value.
Driven by these painful memories, Makara continues her work on the floor with quiet, desperate intensity.
Makara reaches for the scattered documents, her hands trembling as she views her failures.
Neelis reflects on her heavy burden, deciding it is better to handle the situation alone. A bloodstained hand grips the research papers, signaling the beginning of a desperate choice.
Overwhelmed by her perceived mediocrity, Makara weeps silently over the wreckage of her office.
Standing amidst her laboratory's ruins, Makara resolves to work harder to protect her division.
A trembling hand reaches for a syringe containing a forbidden substance known as witch's blood.
Makara stares at the syringe on her desk, contemplating a dangerous path to gain power.
The researcher's face fills with terror as she considers the consequences of her next move. Dark, malevolent energy swirls around the syringe as the witch's blood calls to the desperate. A cryptic message describes a Pandora's box that allows the average to become true geniuses. Makara screams in absolute agony as the dark blood begins to warp her very soul.
Neelis walks through the silent academy halls, wondering if she was too harsh on Makara.
Deciding to offer an apology, Neelis approaches the heavy wooden door to Makara's private office. Inside the room, Neelis finds blood-splattered reports and an empty syringe discarded on the floor.
Horrified by the gruesome discovery, Neelis realizes that something has gone terribly wrong with Makara.
A glowing sphere of light appears as a voice questions its own new, powerful existence.
Covered in blood and surrounded by thorns, Makara wonders if she is finally no longer useless.
A piercing scream echoes through the dark night sky, shattering the peace of the academy.
A young researcher wakes up coughing blood, her body racked with sudden and inexplicable pain. Gasping for air, the girl feels a terrifying pressure as her veins threaten to burst. Glowing blue vines slither across the bedroom floor, ensnaring the girl's ankles with thorny grips. The supernatural plant violently drags the girl from her bed, slamming her onto the floor.
Blood trickling from her mouth, the girl realizes the sudden vines are responsible for her agony. The researcher desperately tries to crawl toward the door, intending to warn the chief about her condition.
Her strength fades completely as her hand collapses, leaving her unconscious in the dark room. A mysterious figure in boots stands over the fallen girl, watching her struggle with cold indifference.
The intruder sighs in disappointment, labeling the unconscious girl as another failed subject for testing.
A hand holds a list of names where almost every researcher has been crossed out.
The man looks down at his notes, frustrated by the lack of viable results from experiments. Clenching his pen, the spy curses his misfortune while more names are eliminated from the list.
A heavy boot stomps onto the scattered papers, crushing the failed research under a heel.
The man laments the mass sacrifice of the Magic Division members for a resultless project.
A trail of blood leads to the broken remains of researchers who perished in the experiments.
Entering a darkened storage room, Hein calls out for Chief Makara, who is working alone.
Standing in the doorway, Hein questions why her superior has come to such a place.
Makara turns around with a sharp look, asserting she should be the one asking questions.
Hein offers a chillingly calm response, her blue eyes devoid of any genuine human emotion.
The girl mocks her superior with a respectful title while dark shadows loom behind her.
Hein feigns relief at Makara's safety, though her smile does not reach her cold eyes.
Hein inquires about Makara's physical state, asking if she feels a new power surging within.
A sinister aura surrounds Hein as she watches her chief with a disturbing, expectant grin.
Losing her patience, Makara delivers a powerful slap that snaps Hein's head to the side. Makara demands that Hein drop her facade and explain how she avoided the academy-wide illness.
Looking unbothered, Hein claims her survival is merely luck while maintaining a polite tone.
Makara counters that luck cannot explain Hein's refusal to help any of her dying colleagues.
Makara directly accuses Hein of being the mastermind behind the attack on Neelis and poisonings.
Hein's expression turns dark and cold as she admits her involvement with a chilling indifference.
With a predatory smirk, Hein challenges Makara to do something about her discovered treachery.
Thorny blue vines erupt from the ground, binding Makara's body and lifting her into the air.
Hein mocks Makara's ambition, questioning why a talented magician would waste time in this division.
Makara gasps in shock as she hears the Order of Heimdall's Light welcomes everyone with ideals.
A close-up of Madri emphasizes his cynical view that might makes right in this world.
Hein's face twists into a sinister grin while declaring that Makara has been utterly fooled by Nilse.
Nilse makes a cold entrance, offering to reintroduce herself if her name has been forgotten.
Bowing with chilling politeness, Nilse prepares to reveal her identity to the trapped Makara and Hein. A sudden, powerful magical impact blasts through the room, catching the traitorous Hein off guard.
Nilse reveals her true, terrifying identity as the legendary witch amidst a backdrop of blue roses.
Hein and Makara stare in utter disbelief at the confirmation of the witch's existence.
Nilse stands tall in the center of the hall while Hein admits she expected this reveal.
With a dismissive smirk, Nilse declares that the exposure of her secret identity no longer matters.
A focused close-up on Nilse's mouth captures her cold silence following her world-shattering revelation.
Hein retaliates with a desperate energy blast, forcing Nilse to evade the sudden, violent counterattack.
Gritting her teeth, Hein questions the seriousness of the witch standing before her in the ruins.
Nilse demands to know who leaked information about the witch's blood and what Hein plans next.
Hein roughly grabs the arm of the struggling researcher, determined to maintain her hold on power.
A cryptic message explains that those born with everything cannot understand the pain of the mediocre.
Hein stands over the bound Makara, surrounded by the debris and vines of her failed experiments.
Flashbacks show Hein's desperate struggle to overcome the talent gap between her and the gifted elites.
Hein recalls the moment Nilse appeared, feeling her own hard work was rendered useless by genius. A mysterious man whispers dark promises to Hein, offering her a way to change her destiny.
Standing with the shadowy figure, Hein believes she has finally found a way to achieve greatness.
Back in the present, Nils shouts a desperate command for Hein to release the wounded Makara. Hein holds up a syringe filled with blood, claiming it is too precious to waste on Makara.
Hein's expression shifts between madness and focus as she prepares to use the forbidden blood substance.
A somber wide shot reveals Nilse cradling a collapsed figure on a blood-stained floor.
Tears well in Nilse's eyes as she gazes in horror at the carnage before her. Desperate to save her friend, Nilse pleads for Makara to hold on a little bit longer.
Nilse stares at her bloodied hands, mourning the tragedy she was unable to prevent from unfolding.
A blood-soaked hand reaches out while a voice laments the eternal existence of natural geniuses.
The word "why" lingers in the air, echoing the deep despair felt within the silent room. Harvey and Karina watch the scene from a high balcony, preparing to intervene in the conflict.
Hein screams out her resentment, demanding to know why she could never be the one chosen.
A hand stained with deep red blood reaches upward toward the light in a final, desperate plea.
Makara shouts a final warning to Hein, begging her to stop her destructive and senseless path. Harvey and Karina leap down from the rafters with intense determination to stop the rogue researcher.
A close-up of Hein's eye reflects the incoming attackers just before a powerful impact occurs.
Harvey and Karina successfully tackle Hein to the ground, pinning her amidst the library's wreckage.
A gloved hand reaches for the discarded syringe, signaling the end of the immediate magical threat.
Hein screams in fury, demanding the return of the precious blood as her plans fall apart.
Makara holds the recovered syringe with a stern expression, finally putting an end to Hein's madness.
The group stands over the defeated Hein, who lies broken on the floor following the confrontation. 3 days later, Nilse warns her friends that an even greater disaster is looming over them.
Karina questions if Nilse refers to the previous attack, noting that Harvey is still missing.
Nilse reveals Harvey is healing in secret and they must maintain the lie of his disappearance.
Makara and Karina listen as Nilse details the plan to catch the one seeking her blood.
Looking resolute, Makara states that she already has a prime suspect in her sights.
Nilse recalls how Hein manipulated the situation earlier to prevent her from using magic against the vines.
Makara stands ready to sacrifice the division's comfort to find the truth about the culprit's needs.
Nilse emphasizes that regardless of their feelings, their top priority is resolving the coming threat. Nils stands surrounded by flowers, finally confirming to Karina and Makara that she is the witch.
Harvey and Karina apprehend the traitorous Hein while Makara demands the stolen blood be returned.
A sharp declaration identifies Nilse as the witch and the true enemy of their order.
Holding the syringe, Makara pleads with Hein to surrender the dangerous substance to her comrade.
Harvey roughly silences Hein while pressing a sharp dagger against her throat in the ruins.
Harvey threatens to kill Hein for injuring his sister and forcing her to reveal herself.
Gritting his teeth, Harvey warns the traitor to behave because he is currently beyond furious.
Makara trembles under the boy's intense gaze, wondering if his anger is directed at her.
Nilse intervenes, calmly commanding Harvey to release the girl as the blue vines surround them. Harvey lowers his weapon and steps back, allowing Hein to face the consequences of her actions.
Nils warns Makara that she should already be well aware of the blood's lethal magical effects.
Nilse reflects on a tragic past victim, questioning if arrogance or blood caused her death.
Makara admits her desire to communicate with the witch through the medium of the blood.
The black-haired witch looks on with somber eyes as the weight of the tragedy settles. Silence hangs heavy in the air while Makara remains focused on the syringe in her hands.
Makara laments the world's unfairness while Hein defends her desperate attempt to find a chance.
A close-up shows the syringe held tightly against Makara's uniform as the final confrontation nears.
Hein falls to the floor, desperately begging Makara to return the syringe to her hands.
Makara stares coldly at her former subordinate, asking if she truly understands the current situation.
Makara refuses Hein's plea, standing firm as the other girl remains kneeling in total defeat.
Makara confesses her own mediocrity, admitting that her title as division head is merely a name.
Makara recalls her long nights of research and the brief temptation to use the witch's blood.
A memory of past camaraderie and laughter highlights the stark contrast to their present betrayal.
Makara remembers a time of shared joy and academic success before the descent into madness.
Makara reflects on her genuine love for solving tough questions and the satisfaction of research.
A bright memory shows Makara celebrating a successful experiment with her colleagues in the past.
Makara prepares to take action, stating that her commitment to research is the ultimate reason.
Hein remains on the floor, broken and waiting for her superior to make a final decision.
Makara admits her fear of never being able to conduct research again outweighs any other failure.
Hein scoffs at Makara's words, arguing that hard work is useless against those born with talent. Makara kneels before the sobbing girl, holding the syringe with a look of somber resolution. Hein's eyes fill with tears as she faces the reality of her failed and desperate plans. Makara suddenly plunges the syringe into Hein's neck, administering a small dose of the blood.
Makara embraces Hein, promising to seek forgiveness together and attempt to fix their broken lives.
Hein weeps in Makara's arms, sadly noting that it is already far too late for her. Hein collapses in pain as the blood takes effect, leaving the onlookers in a state of shock.
Karina and Harvey watch in horror, questioning if the needle's contents actually touched the traitor.
Nilse supports the unconscious girl, explaining that the small dose likely spared her life from death.
Nilse reveals that the blood destroyed Hein's magic pathways, meaning she can never use magic again. Hein looks down at her bloodied palm, realizing the high price she paid for her ambition. With a faint, bitter smile, Hein accepts her fate and the loss of her magical abilities. A peaceful expression crosses Hein's face as she finally lets go of her burning resentment. The group watches as Hein and Makara are led away toward the bright exit of the room.
Nilse watches them go, her purple eyes reflecting the complex emotions of the tragic afternoon.
Harvey and Nilse stand together in the silent hall, processing the aftermath of the intense battle. Harvey tells Nilse that Hein reaped what she sowed and that her pain is not Nilse's fault. Nilse softly agrees with Harvey's assessment, feeling a slight sense of relief amidst the lingering sadness.
A philosophical message questions why tasks shouldn't be passed to the next generation if one fails.
Hein's image appears one last time, looking serene as she leaves her life of magic behind.
Makara stands with her hands bound in chains, accepting the consequences of her involvement in the incident.
Nilse admits she understands the limits of a genius better than most because she sees things differently.
A narrative voice acknowledges the insurmountable gap of talent, but highlights individual strength over millennia. Diverse individuals pursue knowledge and teaching, their seemingly small efforts eventually guiding future generations toward greatness. Holding a mystical grimoire, Nilse shines with magical brilliance as her research finally finds its merit. Makara stands in somber isolation, heavy iron chains trailing behind her as she faces her punishment. Nilse looks on with a gentle, knowing gaze, her expression radiating a newfound sense of peace. Bound by chains and guilt, Makara reflects on her choices with a distant and melancholy expression. Life at the academy returns to normal under a bright sky, hailed as the world's bedrock. A researcher with green hair rests peacefully in bed while receiving gentle care for her recovery. Karina asks her friends for reassurance that their recovering colleagues will eventually be all right after the incident. Harvey explains that Nilse's serum provides protection against the witch's blood, promising their friends eventual recovery. Looking closely at her resting friend, Karina searches for signs of returning health and lingering pain. A blooming vine gently touches Karina's shoulder, prompting her to offer a soft word of thanks.
Rena enthusiastically introduces Wendy, the sentient plant, while a perplexed Karina looks on in stunned silence.
A comical memory shows Harvey sprinting back home to retrieve Wendy immediately after his harrowing cliff jump.
Wearing sunglasses, Wendy the plant expertly blended into the background to observe the enemy's austral vines.
Diagrams reveal how the clever plant infiltrated the laboratory and swapped the dangerous blood samples in secret.
Reina declares Wendy the unexpected champion whose secret actions saved everyone during the chaotic magical disaster.
Celebrating a happy ending, Reina cheers for the lack of casualties and the arrest of the traitor. Harvey interrupts the celebration to note that one final crucial matter still remains entirely unresolved between them. With a serious expression, the blonde boy asks Karina to follow him for a private conversation. Standing in a storage room filled with barrels, Karina asks why they have gathered in this place. A firm hand grips the door handle, signaling the beginning of a tense and final confrontation. Harvey looks down with a shadowed expression, preparing himself to deliver a very difficult and honest truth. Harvey demands to know their intentions regarding the witch, urging them to stop feigning ignorance about her. Reina and Gale exchange worried glances as the atmosphere in the room suddenly turns incredibly heavy. The two village-born students admit they only knew of the witch through the frightening tales of adults. Reina asserts that she trusts her own eyes more than rumors, seeing Neelis only as herself.
Reina aggressively warns Karina that any betrayal of their friend would make them permanent and bitter enemies.
Karina remains silent, her eyes filled with a mixture of confusion, deep thought, and personal conflict.
Harvey expresses his lingering fear that ignoring the witch's true nature will lead to a dark outcome.
Looking at his sword, Harvey wonders if the historical tragedy of the church is destined to repeat.
The boy makes a sudden movement, his frustration nearly boiling over as he addresses his silent companions.
Harvey blocks his friend's path with a sharp metallic sound, emphasizing the gravity of the current situation.
Closing his eyes, Harvey takes a deep breath to compose himself before continuing his passionate verbal assault.
A floral background accompanies a question asking if someone has forgotten the most important detail of all. Karina and Harvey stand in a tense standoff, the silence between them filled with unsaid words and accusations. Harvey argues his sister prioritized saving lives over her own safety, while a chibi Reina cheers him on.
He reminds them that they would have died without her intervention, forcing Karina to face her ingratitude.
A sudden realization hits Karina like a physical blow, her face turning pale as her composure shatters. Overwhelmed by labels of being ungrateful and dishonorable, Karina trembles as her worldview is challenged and broken.
Karina collapses onto her knees in total defeat while Harvey acknowledges her newfound awareness of her own hypocrisy.
Looking completely drained, Karina slowly retreats from the room as her friends watch her departure in silence.
The heavy wooden door shuts with a final clack, leaving the remaining group in the quiet room.
Reina and Gale question if the performance was necessary, but Harvey stands by his judgment of her character.
Gale offers a small, optimistic smile as he considers the future of their fractured group of friends.
Under a clear sky, the thought remains that Karina simply required a genuine reason to trust Nilse.
Karina sprints through the Academy's lush flower gardens, her face illuminated by a new sense of purpose.
Nils steps out from the Grand Academy doors, bathed in the warmth of the bright afternoon sun.
A man with black hair waves cheerfully to the witch as she walks across the stone courtyard.
Sitting among the lilies, the man smiles and notes that he expected her to find him first.
The black-haired man asks how Neelis knew about his identity, but she claims it was a guess.
The man notes that Neelis and her enemies are of different calibers, suggesting a massive power gap. The man smiles enigmatically and asks Neelis to identify herself as the atmosphere grows heavy.
The man agrees with her assessment and prepares to discuss the business at hand before they continue.
The man reaches for his neck as he prepares to reveal a hidden secret to the witch. Neelis recoils in terror as a sudden transformation begins to unfold right before her very eyes.
Neelis' eyes widen in sheer horror at the impossible sight manifesting in front of her.
A woman with crimson hair and intricate black lace gloves makes a stunningly elegant entrance. The red-haired woman stretches with relief, declaring that her original body is still the best.
Neelis gazes at the newcomer in shock, recognizing her as the legendary witch from ancient tales.
The red-haired woman notes that Neelis seems to recognize her based on the expression on her face.
Neelis' eye trembles with intense emotion as she confirms her knowledge of the woman's identity.
Neelis identifies the legendary figure standing before her as Morgana, the very first witch in existence.
Neelis realizes Morgana is her DNA donor and effectively her mother, surviving despite church rumors.
Neelis struggles to process the reality of her connection to the ancient progenitor of all witches.
Morgana asks if Neelis understands how many lives will be lost because of the current situation.
Morgana admits she hates scholars and doesn't care if they all perish in the coming chaos.
Morgana reflects on the harsh truth that progress is often built on the suffering of others. Neelis questions how Morgana can defend the noble causes she previously claimed to be lies. Morgana laughs off the confrontation, admitting she is currently less powerful than the younger witch.
Neelis asks if witches aren't meant to be exceptional, prompting a deeper explanation from Morgana.
Morgana looks down at her hands, contemplating the nature of her unique and cursed existence.
Morgana prepares to explain the fundamental difference that sets her apart from all other beings.
Morgana recalls her humble beginnings in a small village, far removed from the world of magic.
A young Morgana is shown living a simple life amongst the common folk of her village. Child Morgana happily announces that the dinner menu for the evening is mushroom and rice.
Morgana presents a hot meal to her family, a brief moment of warmth before her tragedy. Morgana reflects on a childhood fight that ultimately led to the awakening of her terrifying powers.
Morgana cursed a house to burn, and her words became a horrifying, flaming reality for the village.
Child Morgana stares in mute terror as the destruction she predicted consumes her neighbors. Villagers blame 10-year-old Morgana for the curse that killed their children and destroyed their families.
Morgana was too terrified to defend herself as she was led toward a ritualistic death. A passing church member intervened, taking the young girl away from the angry mob of villagers.
Morgana realizes that her removal from the village was not a rescue, but another dark nightmare.
Shadows loom over the imprisoned girl as she begins her long life under the church's control. Morgana learned to use her power but felt like a discarded beast abandoned by her captors.
Swallowed by terror, Morgana felt her story was ending and wished for any way to change it.
A mysterious man in a white coat kneels before Morgana, offering her an unexpected choice.
The man urgently calls out to Morgana through the iron bars of her dark prison cell.
Handing her a key, the man tells Morgana to run because the real witch has appeared. Morgana watches the fire consume everything, realizing her prophetic dreams have never been wrong.
She looks at a light in the sky, feeling something beyond the rules has changed destiny.
Morgana tells Nihilus that inhabitants of this world cannot change its predetermined and tragic destiny.
Nihilus stands silent, her world shattered by the revelations provided by the mother of all witches.
Morgana warns Nihilus that trouble is coming despite her claim of not being a kind person.
Nihilus's eye widens in surprise as she hears the grave warning about the approaching danger.
Morgana asks Nihilus if she is familiar with the concept of the grandfather paradox.
The question about the grandfather paradox echoes through the dark, reflecting the complexity of time.
Morgana explains that killing her own grandfather in the past would result in her own erasure.
Morgana congratulates Nihilus for twice stopping the church's inhuman experiments and saving countless lives.
Morgana asks Nihilus if she has ever wondered about the consequences of stopping the eternal life plan.
Nihilus stands silently as Morgana speaks of a traveler who crossed time and space to save everyone. A terrified boy with dark skin stares wide-eyed as a voice asks who he would actually be.
Nihilus's somber reflection appears in the carriage window as she travels through the peaceful countryside.
Farmers work diligently in the lush green fields while a horse-drawn carriage passes by on the road.
A villager and a boy pause their work as the creaking carriage enters their quiet farmland.
The brown-haired boy cheers with joy, celebrating his long-awaited return to his beloved home village.
Villagers gather with bright smiles, enthusiastically welcoming the returning travelers back to their community.
Tears stream down the boy's face as he reaches out to embrace his friends and neighbors.
Neighbors mob the boy with affection, while Harvey receives requests to fix broken household plumbing.
The pink-haired girl tells the boy he should have expected this, but he remains hopeful.
Elegant black shoes adorned with pink gems step out of the carriage onto the grass. Nihilus emerges from the carriage looking stunningly refined, catching the attention of every villager present.
White flowers bloom around the hem of Nihilus's dress as she makes her graceful entrance.
Villagers whisper in awe about Harvey's beautiful sister, noting it is their first time seeing her.
A small boy named Colin cautiously approaches the newcomer, wondering if she's a friendly person.
The villagers laugh heartily, observing that little Colin has already taken a liking to Nihilus.
Nihilus looks surprised and slightly overwhelmed as Colin reaches out to touch her elegant dress.
A tense silence follows as the villagers watch Nihilus's awkward reaction to the child's approach.
Nihilus stands frozen under the collective gaze of the curious and confused villagers in the courtyard.
A hand pulls Colin back as a voice tells the child to stop bothering the girl. Harvey lifts Colin up, explaining that his sister's dress has protective magic that might cause injury. Harvey winks at the little boy, playfully asking for his cooperation in keeping everyone safe.
Nihilus confirms her brother's words with a quiet, somber look, her eyes filled with hidden sadness.
Based on her quiet demeanor, the villagers conclude that Harvey's sister must be a good person.
Nihilus reflects on her social anxiety, feeling immensely grateful that Harvey stepped in to help her.
Nihilus realizes that all her important connections in this world ultimately began with her bond with Harvey.
A villager calls out to Miss Nihilus, startling her as she rests alone against a tree.
Colin's mother apologizes for her son and asks if Nihilus is finally healthy enough to be out.
The woman enthusiastically invites Nihilus to dinner, leaving the introverted girl feeling confused and flustered. Neighbors bicker over who should host the guest, insulting each other's cooking skills in the process.
The group decides to throw a large village party to celebrate Miss Nihilus's recovery together.
A woman leans in close, asking Nihilus if she can help install a washing machine soon.
Colin's mother scolds her neighbor for troubling Nihilus so soon after she has recovered her health. Nihilus watches the bickering villagers with a soft, melancholic gaze, feeling the warmth of their community.
Morgana tells Nihilus that the world is currently in the process of slowly erasing her existence.
Morgana explains that Nihilus will soon be forgotten by everyone except those who share deep bonds.
Nihilus asks how much time she has left, appearing remarkably composed despite the terrifying news.
Morgana gazes at her with pity, preparing to reveal the very short time Nihilus has remaining. The cold reality is delivered against the sky. Nihilus has at most 3 days of life left. Nihilus smiles peacefully among the white flowers, accepting the tragic fate that awaits her very soon.
Faded silhouettes of villagers washing clothes by the river emphasize the theme of being forgotten.
A hand reaches into a basket of fresh vegetables as the scene shifts back to reality. Harvey and a friend discuss the excessive amount of food prepared to thank the local wearer. The boy asks Harvey if he truly intends to skip the training offered by the order. Harvey looks down thoughtfully, the weight of his secret responsibilities showing in his serious expression. The boy mentions that the order's training could lead to a recommendation for the Night Corps.
Harvey scratches his head, admitting that while the offer is sincere, he cannot accept it.
Harvey explains he must avoid the spotlight to keep Nihilus's true identity a secret from others. Harvey recalls his vow to protect Nihilus from harm, a commitment he values above any career. Surrounded by the tools of their shared past, a somber reflection acknowledges that betrayal leaves scars.
Harvey looks on with a soft, gentle expression as he considers his deep bond with Nihilus.
Wielding a kitchen knife, Emily frustratedly tells Gale that men are far too easily swayed by emotions.
Emily aggressively chases Harvey, shouting that Neela specifically doesn't want him to sacrifice his future for her.
Emily argues that basing every choice on another person causes someone to lose their own identity. A sudden, intense close-up reveals the depth of emotion hidden within the boy's focused green eyes. Harvey and Emily stand in a tense silence as the gravity of her words sinks in. Surrounded by white roses, Harvey prepares to face the difficult reality of his sister's impending fate.
Emily and Gale watch in stunned silence, their expressions reflecting the weight of the current conversation.
Emily sighs with exasperation, stating that Harvey is completely obsessed with his sister as Gale looks on. Emily's loud declaration about Harvey's sister complex echoes across the peaceful village as the townspeople react. Walking through the forest, Harvey privately thinks about how incredibly loud Emily was being just now. Harvey enters his home, admitting his obsession while noting his friends lack anyone worthy of such devotion. A heavy hammer strikes the glowing hot metal on the anvil with a resounding metallic thud. Neelis works diligently at the forge, attempting to master the difficult craft of professional-grade blacksmithing. The master blacksmith instructs Neelis to work quickly without using brute force to avoid breaking the blade. Harvey enters the workshop and calls out to his sister, surprised to see her working so hard. Standing amidst white flowers, Neelis turns to Harvey and happily notes that he arrived just in time. The girl plunges the heated blade into a bucket of water, causing a thick cloud of steam. Handing the weapon over, Neelis tells Harvey to try it out while he asks about its purpose.
Neelis leans in close and firmly tells Harvey to test the sword without asking any more questions.
With a series of swift strikes, the new blade effortlessly slices through several thick wooden logs. Inspecting the results, Neelis determines the sword is unsatisfactory because its balance is not quite right.
Neelis decides to redo the sword, fearing Harvey will be mocked if he uses a flawed weapon.
Harvey asks if the weapon is meant for him, and Neelis confirms it with a focused look.
Neelis explains that she must craft the sword herself to properly enhance it with her magic.
Holding 2 pieces of ore, Neelis frustratedly laments her lack of skill and the difficulty of metalworking. Harvey watches his sister with a shadowed expression, his heart heavy with unspoken and painful thoughts.
Standing among blooming hydrangeas, Harvey tells Neelis that he only wants her, not a magical sword.
Bubbles floating among the petals convey the sentiment that he needs nothing else as long as she remains.
A peaceful smile touches the boy's face as he cherishes the simple warmth of the moment. Night falls over the village and a warm glow emanates from the windows of a nearby tavern.
The townspeople gather inside the hall for a lively celebration, bickering over food and enjoying the dance.
Neela stands alone in the crowded room, her elegant dress making her a centerpiece of quiet attention.
A swirl of magical energy surrounds the girl as she prepares for her final days in this world. Inner thoughts suggest that sneaking away to die alone in a quiet corner would be more characteristic.
Neelis reflects on how she previously considered leaving in secret but eventually decided against that lonely path.
Neelis realizes that leaving without a word would leave those by her side with an eternal, agonizing remorse.
The narrative voice notes that while the beginning would be agonizing, witnessing the end is still necessary.
Neelis' hand rests gently on Harvey's head as he weeps, a symbol of their tragic and deep connection.
Neelis argues that seeing the end firsthand is better than the torture of not knowing her ultimate fate.
Under a brilliant sky, a message suggests that in time, the boy will learn to move on. Harvey continues to assist the villagers, though a pale, spectral image of his sister watches from nearby.
Neelis notes that there is at least hope for Harvey to achieve what she could never do.
Harvey pauses his work among the townspeople, looking towards someone who has just called his name.
The blonde boy's face lights up with a radiant and joyful grin under the afternoon sun.
Neelis looks up with a start, her purple eyes wide with surprise at Harvey's sudden, happy appearance. Running toward her, Harvey invites Neelis to join everyone for the dancing that will take place later.
With a shy, hopeful look, the boy begins to ask his sister for a very special favor.
Harvey gazes at Neelis with pleading, earnest eyes, waiting for her answer with bated and anxious breath.
Neelis offers a gentle, heartbreaking smile as she prepares for the end of her journey.
Harvey looks at Neelis with a look of profound realization and sorrowful, quiet understanding.
A memory shows the group enjoying a peaceful picnic while Neelis fantasized about normalcy.
A sudden, sharp pain strikes Neelis as the process of her erasure finally begins.
Harvey catches Neelis as she collapses, crying out her name in absolute terror and panic.
Their hands slowly slip apart, symbolizing the inevitable separation that is now taking place. A bright light flares as Harvey tries to grasp Neelis' hand before she fades away.
Neelis falls onto the floor while Gale and Emily watch the scene in total shock.
Harvey is gripped by horror as he watches his sister's existence start to flicker out.
Neelis lies motionless on the ground, surrounded by a faint, magical aura of fading light. A student calls for a teacher as the group gathers around the fallen, unconscious Neelis.
Emily and Gale frantically ask what is wrong and if Neelis needs medical attention.
Gale asks for help to take Neelis to a doctor while she remains in cane.
Harvey aggressively orders them not to touch her, lashing out in his state of grief.
Emily asks how he can say that now, while Harvey insists on protecting Neelis' body.
Harvey and Emily share a tense, emotional look as Neelis remains unconscious between them.
A magical sound accompanies Neelis' body turning transparent, signaling her final departure from this world.
Emily covers her mouth, her eyes widening in sheer terror at the sight of Neelis.
Harvey tells the others again not to touch Neelis, his voice filled with deep despair. The scene shifts to a quiet house in the countryside under an increasingly cloudy sky. Harvey sits by Neelis's bed, desperately using his healing magic as she continues to fade. A close-up of Harvey's bloodshot eyes reveals the physical and emotional toll of his efforts.
Emily asks for an update on Neelis's condition while standing outside the village house. Gale reports that Harvey's healing magic is failing as Neelis's body begins to slowly vanish.
Emily asks what they can do to stop their friend from being completely erased.
Emily begs Gale to think of a plan, but he admits his utter helplessness.
Gale argues that even the witch couldn't stop this, questioning his own ability to help.
Gale asks what happened and realizes the situation is far worse than they imagined.
Emily and Gale look at each other, their faces filled with worry for their dying friend.
The realization hits that the villagers have already lost their memories of the previous day.
Gale reflects on how strange it is that everyone has completely forgotten Neelis's existence.
Villagers ask about Neelis and a gathering, seemingly confused by their own fading memories. A woman claims to remember Neelis, but her thoughts quickly become muddled and uncertain.
The villager's memory fails completely as she wonders if Harvey has always lived alone.
Emily is horrified as the full reality of Neelis's erasure from existence becomes clear.
Gale suggests that ordinary people should not meddle and perhaps doing nothing is best.
Gale notes that this sacrifice was Neelis's choice, believing it was the best option.
Emily calls out to Harvey as he reacts with a sudden surge of intense emotion.
Harvey stands and voices firm objection to letting Neelis disappear from his life.
Harvey declares that he objects to the current situation as Emily and Gale watch.
Harvey refuses to be abandoned, claiming Neelis made him unable to live without her.
Gale tries to calm Harvey, asking who he can turn to for any help.
Harvey shouts that he only knows he will lose her if he doesn't act immediately.
Harvey collapses onto his knees, desperately pleading for his friends to help save Neelis.
Gale and Emily look down at Harvey with pity, unable to offer any real comfort.
A mysterious red-haired woman appears in the trees and asks for their identities.
The red-haired woman Morgana leaps down from the tree with a sudden, powerful movement.
Morgana cries out in pain after landing, surprising the group with her sudden, clumsy entrance.
The red-haired witch tumbles to the ground with a loud thud, startling the grieving friends. Morgana continues to groan in pain as the group watches her in total, stunned confusion. Morgana strikes a dramatic pose, looking remarkably more composed than during her recent clumsy fall.
Morgana stands within a magical circle drawn on the floor of the village house courtyard.
Harvey cradles his sister's fading body as a magical aura continues to surround them both.
Morgana calls Emily forward, identifying her as Neelis's student and requesting her immediate cooperation.
Morgana touches Emily's forehead, initiating a magical transfer that manifests as a brilliant golden glow.
Brilliant golden energy swirls through the room, directed toward the boy holding the dying girl.
The magical energy flows directly into the hand of the unconscious girl held tightly by Harvey.
A glowing golden ring forms around Neelis's finger, signifying the success of Morgana's temporary intervention.
Emily and Gale celebrate the sudden halt of Neelis' erasure with expressions of pure joy.
Morgana warns that the stabilization is temporary, and the girl will still eventually fade away. Morgana explains that Neil no longer belongs to this world and requires a stronger connection.
Morgana confirms Harvey's identity as she considers the depth of his bond with his sister.
Morgana proposes placing a marker on Harvey to help Neelis navigate back from the void.
Morgana cautions Harvey that linking their souls through magical threads may lead to unforeseen consequences.
Morgana asks if Harvey has ever previously suggested such a dangerous magical solution to Neelis.
Morgana recalls a past encounter where Neelis rejected her help and chose to bind her.
Morgana explains she arrived quickly after sensing Neelis' magic fail during her selfless sacrifice.
Harvey asks the red-haired witch when his sister will finally wake up from her slumber.
Morgana honestly admits she is unsure when or if the girl will ever regain consciousness. Harvey is shown throughout the years visiting a solitary grave marker in a flowery field.
The blonde boy looks down with a somber expression as he reflects on his loss.
Ethereal blue orbs float among the leaves of a plant under a pale morning light.
Glowing blue lights drift through the darkness of a dense forest as a presence awakens.
Neelis opens her eyes to find herself surrounded by shimmering blue particles in a void.
Waking in a starry expanse, the girl calls out a name while looking around confusedly.
Neelis stands before a massive, glowing white cube that floats within the vast celestial void.
Narrative text explains that she is currently exploring the deepest memories within her own heart.
The girl reaches out toward a brilliant blue orb that pulses with a strange, inviting energy.
Neelis touches the surface of a magical mirror, reflecting the starry environment and glowing orbs.
Fragments of her past memories swirl around Neelis as she prepares to face her history.
Neelis decides that her mission is over and it is time for her to return home.
The girl questions where her true home lies as she reflects on her life before transmigration.
Memory shards depict a happy family and a girl walking to school in a different world.
Neelis compares her former life to her current one, noting both had their own difficulties.
The girl identifies herself as a reader who temporarily occupied the body of the story's protagonist.
Neelis asks the void for permission to finally return to the world she came from.
A swirl of cosmic energy glows purple and pink against the backdrop of the dark void.
A mysterious voice contradicts Neelis, claiming that she was never actually a transmigrator from another world.
Neelis reaches for a highly ornate mirror that glows with an intense, magical pink light.
The girl's hand makes contact with the mirror's surface, causing a blinding flare of white light.
The mirror shatters to reveal a reflection that suggests she merely wanted an easier existence.
Neelis is overcome with shock as the truth about her origins and desires is finally revealed.
A vision of a smiling, bespectacled girl holding a book appears amidst a flurry of flowers.
Neelis stands alone in a barren landscape next to a simple wooden cross and grave.
Workers in a grand pillared hall move boxes, signaling a major change in their research project. Two scientists discuss the transition of leadership for the controversial Eternal Life Plan research project.
The men mention a witch whose progress stopped following the tragic death of her student.
A man prepares to unveil a cage-like structure that has been kept hidden under a cloth. A despondent woman with long black hair sits in silence, her expression filled with sorrow. The black-haired woman looks up from her seat as someone approaches her in the laboratory.
A young purple-eyed child stares through metal bars with an expression of profound sadness. A close-up of the girl's face reveals her trembling lips and eyes filled with tears. Neelis angrily confronts a researcher, demanding an end to the cruel experiments being performed on humans.
The man argues that the higher-ups only care about results and ignore the ethics involved. A researcher questions Neelis about her decision to give up on their shared scientific goals.
Neelis stands alone in a grand ruined hall, surrounded by the debris of her past. A close-up shows the girl's hand clutching her elegant white and gold dress in distress.
Shattered memory fragments show a blonde boy as Neelis laments that everything is her fault.
Surrounded by lab-coated figures, Neelis feels the suffocating pressure of her former life's expectations. The black-haired girl screams in agony while her orange-haired colleague watches with a terrified expression. Neelis unleashes a surge of magical power, physically pushing away the people trying to restrain her.
A woman is engulfed in magical flames as a scientist fruitlessly tries to intervene.
Neelis reflects on her life as a curse, where screams of pain follow her every movement.
In a memory, Neelis kneels before a blonde boy who sits chained to a massive throne.
Scientists discuss Neelis's detachment from the project as she sits silently in the background.
The memory of Neelis using her destructive flames against her colleagues repeats in her mind.
Bloodstains mar the pristine white snow as Neelis walks alone through a dead, frozen forest.
Facing her fate, the wounded girl stands before a group of approaching, heavily armored knights. A group of warriors led by a blonde knight confronts the girl in the snowy woods.
The blonde knight stabs Neelis through the chest, a tragic end to their complicated bond.
A close-up of the blonde knight's face reveals bloodstains and a look of hollow duty.
Bright red blood pools in the white snow, signaling the end of the girl's journey.
Lying alone in the forest, the narrative labels the girl's entire existence as a mistake.
Glowing pink magical energy begins to swirl around Neelis's body as she prepares to vanish.
Neelis declares that she no longer wishes to live her life as the feared witch. Falling into an abyss, the girl desperately wishes for the power to turn back time. White birds soar through a clear blue sky, signaling a transition into a new reality.
A vibrant, green mountain landscape represents the peaceful world Neelis hoped to find after death.
Neelis sits on a grassy hill, watching white rabbits play in the beautiful afternoon sun.
The girl reflects on her wish to be reborn as someone else to escape her past. A voice in the void tells Neelis she only used transmigration as a shallow escape. A glowing hand touches Neelis's face, mocking her failure to achieve the normal life she wanted.
A glowing, red-haired entity embraces Neelis, telling her that all her suffering is finally over. The entity reveals it is the manifestation of Neelis's past, her deepest fears and secret desires.
The red-haired specter invites Neelis to stay in the void and find peace together forever.
Neelis looks back at the glowing presence, considering the offer to abandon the real world.
Neelis explains that death would be easy, but she chose to survive Harvey's final sword strike.
The girl firmly rejects the entity's claim, asserting that she is no longer that person.
A memory shows blood-stained hands reaching for a butterfly, symbolizing her will to live on.
Neelis resolves to keep moving forward even if the world reminds her of painful memories.
The black-haired girl reaches out to gently touch the face of her fading past self. Neelis looks up with determination, declaring that the witch within her still lives and persists. The red-haired figure shatters into pieces, asking Neelis if she has finally found her home.
Standing before the massive glowing cube, Neelis prepares to return to the world of the living. With a quiet look of certainty, the girl answers the entity's final question with a yes.
A gentle, peaceful smile touches Neelis's face as she finally finds her sense of belonging.
Neelis wakes up in a sunlit bedroom, sitting on her bed as reality slowly returns.
The girl looks down at her feet, confirming she is physically back in her own home.
Neelis brushes her long black hair aside, feeling the warmth of the morning sun's rays.
Walking toward the door, Neelis wonders aloud how long she has been lost in her slumber.
Neelis wakes and finds herself back in reality, seeing a familiar figure sitting nearby.
A pair of sturdy boots stands on the floor next to Neelis' bare feet.
Neelis looks up with wide, startled eyes as she realizes who is standing before her. A bundle drops to the floor with a heavy thud, interrupting the morning silence. A voice calls out her name, breaking the spell of her long, deep slumber. Emily approaches Harvey with a heavy heart, explaining she has come to say goodbye. Emily details her move to the Magic Academy, explaining she won't return for a while.
Emily asks if he hurt her as Harvey continues his focused work at the bench.
Harvey reflects on his aimless past, noting how Neelis gave his future a purpose.
A heartwarming memory shows Neelis and Emily smiling together amidst a field of flowers.
Emily vows to take this opportunity, insisting she isn't turning her back on Neelis.
Emily encourages Harvey to live his own life and hopes he can move on too.
A soft, peaceful smile spreads across Harvey's face as he listens to his friend.
Harvey tells Emily that he is genuinely glad she found her own life's path.
Harvey apologizes for his recent gloominess and assures Emily that he is finally fine.
Harvey shares his plans to improve Neelis' comfort before returning to hone his swordsmanship.
Harvey expresses his desire for Neelis to find a stronger, more mature brother upon waking. Harvey encourages mutual hard work while Emily agrees with a look of renewed determination.
Emily waves goodbye, promising to see Harvey again after she graduates from the academy.
Harvey's expression turns somber and pained as the weight of his loneliness returns.
On the 73rd day, Harvey stands alone outside their home under a vast sky.
By day 75, Harvey trains rigorously with a sword and shield against a wall. Nearly a year later, Harvey assists the villagers with the harvest, working alongside them.
Over 3 years pass and Harvey smiles warmly while speaking to a fellow villager.
Harvey sits despondently by Neelis' bedside at night, his face buried in his hands. Through a frame of cherry blossoms, Harvey's green eye reflects a deep, enduring sorrow.
Neelis awakens and asks if it is Harvey, questioning why he looks so different. Without a word, Harvey pulls Neelis into a sudden, desperate, and powerful embrace. Confused, Neelis asks what is happening and wonders aloud how long she was asleep.
Neelis observes that the room remains unchanged as Harvey continues to hold her tightly.
The siblings share a moment of intense emotional silence, their past struggles hanging between them.
Neelis asks Harvey to let go of her for a moment so she can breathe.
Ignoring her request, Harvey only pulls his sister closer, squeezing her in a desperate hug.
Harvey whispers a soft confirmation that she has finally returned to him at last.
Tears well in Harvey's eyes as he repeats his relief that she is finally back.
Their figures are reflected on a pristine surface, locked in a long-awaited and emotional reunion.
Neelis gently touches Harvey's face and apologizes for keeping him waiting for so long.
Neelis promises never to leave him again, her voice filled with a new, quiet certainty. In a comedic shift, Neelis tells Harvey to let go as he remains stubbornly attached.
Neelis asks Harvey to tell her everything that has occurred during the years she missed.
Neelis tells Harvey he needn't stare so intently, promising she won't suddenly vanish again. Neelis asks if their friends are well, and Harvey confirms that everyone is doing great. Harvey explains that Ram took over his family's trade business and is doing quite well. Harvey shares that Emily is currently away, focusing on her studies at the Magic Academy. Harvey jokes about keeping Neelis' return secret so Emily doesn't get into trouble for rushing back. Harvey recounts joining the Order of Heimdall's Light to train as a future paladin. Kneeling by her chair, Harvey reassures Neelis that he has lived well during her absence. Harvey declares his confidence in his sword skills and his new ability to protect her.
Neelis orbits around the older Harvey, inspecting his physical growth from every possible angle.
Neelis concludes that Harvey looks healthy and strong, clearly having taken good care of himself.
Neelis touches Harvey's face and notes he hasn't slept properly for a long time.
Harvey smiles gently as Neelis brushes his face with a soft, affectionate touch.
Harvey leans into Neelis' lap, prompting her to wonder if he wants a head pat.
Neelis gazes down thoughtfully, sensing that something about their current situation feels slightly different.
Neelis gently pets Harvey's head as he rests peacefully with his eyes closed.
Neelis observes Harvey's maturity and questions if their usual dynamic requires a necessary adjustment.
Harvey suddenly leans toward Neelis, startling her as she sits in the wooden chair.
Neelis quickly dismisses her concerns, telling Harvey that her momentary hesitation was nothing. Neelis asks Harvey directly how much time has passed since he last slept.
Harvey claims he is fine, but Neelis forcefully insists that his condition says otherwise.
Neelis spreads a large blanket over Harvey as he prepares to rest on the bed.
Neelis smiles warmly and tells Harvey to sleep while she watches over him.
Harvey asks about her plans, and Neelis promises to go to bed very soon. Neelis looks at Harvey with a pained expression, whispering his name in the quiet room. The two siblings sit together on the bed in a moment of heavy, shared silence. Neelis acknowledges that despite Harvey's attempts to hide it, she still senses his deep pain.
Neelis asks Harvey if he remembers the state of the house when they first arrived.
In a memory, Neelis reflects on her past frustration and the bitterness of being hated. A young Harvey calls out to Neelis in the flashback, breaking her dark train of thought. Young Harvey appears with a massive bundle of pink cherry blossoms and a bright smile.
The memory shows Harvey arranging flowers while Neelis enjoys a peaceful moment of tea.
Neelis notes that while the house looks the same, the warmth Harvey maintained is missing. A close-up reveals Harvey's somber eyes, reflecting the heavy burden of his long wait. Harvey gazes at Neelis and makes a solemn vow to stay by her side. Harvey accepts his circumstances, deciding he has no choice but to forgive Neelis' long absence. Neelis wishes Harvey a good night as she prepares to leave for the other room. Harvey grabs Neelis' hand and desperately begs her not to go or leave him.
Harvey frantically reminds Neelis of her promise to never leave his side again.
Neelis is visibly shocked by the sheer intensity and desperation of Harvey's sudden reaction.
A comedic panel depicts Harvey as a sad puppy pleading for Neelis to stay. Neelis is completely flustered as she realizes Harvey wants them to sleep together.
Neelis tells Harvey to wait and ask him not to lunge at her so suddenly.
Harvey reminds her of her oath while Neelis explains she was only going nearby.
Harvey hovers over Neelis on the bed, creating a tense and deeply emotional atmosphere.
Harvey explains his fear of waking up to find her gone after 7 long years.
Harvey expresses his profound trauma, stating he cannot handle another day without her presence. Harvey looks down with a sad expression and asks if his request is not okay.
Neelis relents to his plea, telling him not to worry or repeat this behavior.
Neelis wonders to herself if Harvey has become much more clingy than he used to be.
Neelis reflects on how Harvey's transition into adulthood has only intensified his attachment to her. Neelis realizes she is responsible for his current behavior and sighs at the self-inflicted situation.
Chibi Harvey happily pats the pillow next to him, inviting Neelis to Duran. Pillows fly through the air as Neelis hurriedly prepares a divider for the bed.
Neelis sets a firm boundary with pillows, warning Harvey that crossing it results in losing.
Neelis smiles and says goodnight as she lies down on her side of the bed.
Harvey watches Neelis with a look of pure relief, happy to have her close again.
A close-up of Harvey's eye shows a soft green glow filled with quiet, enduring affection.
Harvey's hand reaches out to gently touch Neelis's hair as she falls into a slumber.
Harvey remains by Neelis's side all night, fulfilling his promise to never leave her side.
A new day dawns as two birds sit together on a branch in the sunlight.
Neelis wakes up, her black hair spilling across the bed as morning light filters in.
Harvey lies beside Neelis, holding her in a protective and gentle embrace on the bed. A peaceful morning is interrupted by Neelis' sudden, echoing scream from inside the wooden house.
The black-haired girl yells at Harvey to cut the act and get up because he is already awake.
Harvey looks up with a tired expression and tells Neelis that he is feeling cold. Neelis stares at him with a silent, unimpressed expression as she processes his obvious excuse.
Neelis bluntly tells a shivering Chibi Harvey to exercise if he wants to warm up.
Walking toward the wardrobe, Neelis notes to herself that Harvey is becoming increasingly bold lately.
Neelis is bewildered to find her wardrobe completely empty of all her usual clothes.
Neelis asks where her clothes are, and Harvey tells her he put them away to keep the dust off, advising her to just wear her nightgown today.
Neelis questions if Harvey intends to tell Ram and their other friends that she is finally awakened.
Harvey continues cooking at the hearth, calmly stating that he won't tell them for now.
Harvey explains that since Emily is studying and Ram is busy with business, he figured he would wait to tell them.
Harvey suggests with a suspicious smile that too much excitement might not be ideal for her recovery.
Harvey explains he has stocked enough food to live in isolation on the mountain for months.
Harvey boasts that his skills in carpentry and blacksmithing allow him to make anything she needs.
Neelis calls his name, looking at him with a realization of his overprotective and isolating behavior.
Neelis directly asks Harvey if he plans to keep her locked up in the house forever. Harvey looks back at Neelis with a somber, intense gaze that betrays his inner turmoil.
Villagers are shown gathered in the town square, surrounded by the bounty of a successful harvest.
Harvey reflects on being scolded as he stands in the village wearing his white knightly uniform.
Harvey admits he began thinking Neelis would only be safe if she remained hidden from everyone. Looking at the villagers, Harvey worries if he will become someone who hurts Neelis as well. A hand suddenly reaches out to grab Harvey's, and a voice asks why he is dawdling.
Neelis, dressed in an elegant gown, smiles brightly at Harvey and tells him to keep up.
Harvey stares at Neelis with a look of pure awe and a slight blush on his face.
The pair walks through the village market hand in hand, drawing the attention of the local townspeople.
A village woman recognizes Harvey and calls out to him with a look of utter surprise.
Harvey flashes a playful smile and places a finger to his lips, signaling the woman to hush.
The village woman gasps in delight, looking visibly excited by the secret Harvey is keeping. Villagers gossip about Harvey's new companion, wondering if his many female admirers will be heartbroken.
The village woman looks on with a soft, knowing smile as she watches the two walk away.
Harvey and Neelis share a quiet, intimate moment together amidst the blooming flowers of the village.
Petals drift through the air against a soft yellow light as the scene begins to transition.
Several people are seen running through the village streets, creating a sense of urgent commotion. A man bursts through a doorway and shouts Harvey's name, interrupting the quiet of the room.
Ram asks Harvey with intense urgency if the rumors about Neelis being awake are actually true.
In a comedic panel, Harvey and Neelis both signal Ram to be quiet with the house.
Ram weeps with relief, confessing he had feared Neelis might never wake from her long sleep. Ram wonders if she didn't come back alive, but Neelis shouts that she is very much alive and not a ghost.
Harvey stands silently in the background, his green eyes glowing with a soft, protective light.
Neelis looks up at Harvey, her expression softening as she calls out his name in realization.
A happy Chibi Harvey wags his tail while Chibi Neelis smiles back at him affectionately.
A villager suggests celebrating and informing Emily, but Harvey insists on keeping the news a secret.
Neelis' expression turns serious as she informs the group that she has run into a problem. Neelis asks Ram if he knows the whereabouts of the red-haired woman who previously helped him.
Ram explains the woman never gave her name or address, only saying she would find Neelis when she wakes up, leading Neelis to realize she is still meddling. Harvey looks at Neelis with a confused and concerned expression, asking her what is wrong.
Neelis remains silent for a moment, her eyes downcast as she considers how to explain herself.
Neelis decides to show Harvey the truth, revealing a strange glowing yellow mark on her palm. Neelis attempts to channel magic through a ritual circle, but the energy feels unstable. A sudden, sharp sound echoes as the glass chalice at the center abruptly shatters. Neelis observes the fragments of her magic and reflects on her initial feeling of unease.
Harvey and Ram listen intently as Neelis continues explaining her growing realization about her state. Standing amidst white blossoms, Neelis solemnly confirms she has lost the ability to use magic.
At a local tavern, Ram encourages Neelis to share whatever is on her mind. Harvey suggests her current weakness might be a consequence of her 7-year-long slumber.
Neelis admits she considered that possibility, but ultimately finds the explanation to be highly unlikely. Neelis concludes her magic was sealed by the red-haired entity rather than being lost forever.
Neelis stares at her reflection and wonders why the woman chose to restrict her power.
Neelis questions the true motive behind the entity saving her life only to seal her.
Ram signals for attention, indicating he has a specific question regarding their current situation. Ram asks if there are any other dire consequences if they fail to find that woman.
Neelis worries that without magic, she cannot defend herself if her witch identity is exposed.
Neelis notes that tracking the elusive woman will be nearly impossible without her magical sensing.
Neelis affirms her trust in Ram and Harvey, calling them her only reliable allies.
Neelis decides against involving Emily yet, noting her friend is busy with critical magical studies.
Ram sighs in frustration, admitting they have currently reached a complete dead end. Ram apologizes for his lack of help, but Neelis insists that even silence is informative.
Ram departs to handle business, promising to reunite with the siblings later in the bay.
Harvey and Neelis share a quiet moment alone as the bustling town continues around them. Neelis asks Harvey why he doesn't seem frustrated by the lack of any leads.
Neelis notices Harvey's cheerful demeanor and wonders if he is actually happy about her situation.
Neelis confesses that losing her destructive magic actually allows her to feel like a normal person.
Neelis remembers the fear and isolation her powers once caused her in the past.
Neelis looks ahead with a newfound sense of freedom and lightness in her heart. Standing tall in an elegant dress, Neelis prepares to embrace her new life.
Neelis celebrates her ability to blend in, though Harvey notes she still looks quite unique.
Neelis apologizes for the potential danger her past might bring to her loyal friends.
Harvey stares into Neelis's eyes and makes a solemn promise to keep her safe forever.
Harvey jokingly vows to defeat an entire army to ensure his sister remains unharmed.
Harvey continues his boast, promising to strike down 10,000 men if necessary for her. Harvey declares that no matter the number of foes, he will protect every strand of hair. Neelis reaches out to touch Harvey's shoulder, acknowledging his intense and sincere protective vow.
With a small bow, Neelis tells Harvey she will be relying on his strength.
As they walk, Neelis suggests getting a haircut to manage her excessively long black hair. Golden autumn leaves frame the scene as the pair explores the busy village market.
Harvey leans against a wall outside a shop, waiting patiently for his sister to finish.
Harvey expresses mild annoyance at being excluded from the establishment reserved only for women.
Neelis exits the shop, remarking that she can finally see clearly without her long bangs.
Neelis stands revealed with a shorter, more sophisticated hairstyle that accentuates her features.
Neelis looks at Harvey with a gentle smile and asks for his opinion on her hair.
Harvey is completely stunned into silence, his face turning bright red at her beauty.
Noticing his reaction, Neelis asks with concern if her new appearance looks bad to him.
Harvey's heart races as he stammers out a confirmation that she looks truly wonderful.
Neelis is pleased, explaining she chose a mature style to match Harvey's own growth.
Harvey suddenly crouches in distress, leading Neelis to ask if he has fallen ill.
Harvey hides his blushing face in his hand, desperately asking for a few moments to recover.
Neelis spins around in confusion, unable to understand the cause of Harvey's sudden strange behavior.
Neelis wonders why her brother is acting so weirdly when he was perfectly fine earlier.
Neelis worries if Harvey is physically ill or stressed about her current magical loss.
Neelis observes Harvey's exhaustion, suspecting he hasn't rested or eaten properly in several years.
A flustered Harvey remains hunched over, his face flushed with a deep internal confusion.
Harvey sits despondently by the village fountain, unable to quiet his racing and troubled mind.
Harvey reflects on his joy over Neelis's return and the sudden change in their dynamic. A chibi Harvey panics over his physical reaction, insisting he didn't eat anything bad.
Harvey resolves to hide his distress so Neelis won't worry amidst her own struggles.
Both siblings feel a sense of urgency, determined to resolve the tension between them. While walking through the market, the pair decides it's finally time for an honest conversation.
Neelis asks if anything is wrong, but Harvey clumsily maintains he is perfectly fine.
The air between them grows thick with an unnatural and exhausting sense of mutual awkwardness.
Harvey desperately tries to calm his nerves and searches for a way to change subjects.
Harvey tries to distract himself with a cold treat while Neelis asks for a taste.
Neelis leans in to share the frozen snack amidst a backdrop of soft spring blossoms.
Harvey's heart skips a beat as he stares at Neelis with wide, flustered, and enamored eyes.
Startled by his own intense emotions, Harvey accidentally drops the treat onto the stone floor.
Harvey looks down at the dropped treat while Neelis wonders if it simply slipped away.
Neelis leans closer to check on her brother, but her proximity only intensifies his panic. A frantic chibi Neelis tries to get the unresponsive Harvey's attention in the market. Neelis touches Harvey's forehead to check for a fever, making him even more visibly flustered. Overwhelmed, Harvey shouts for her to stay away, drawing the attention of the surrounding villagers.
Harvey clutches his face in shame as a sudden nosebleed betrays his extreme emotional state.
Neelis stands frozen in shock, hurt and confused by Harvey's sudden and aggressive physical rejection.
Harvey realizes he has made a terrible mistake and panics over his own erratic behavior. Later, Ram greets Harvey at his workplace, apologizing for being held up by his duties.
Ram notices Harvey's distress and asks why he arrived alone without Neelis by his side.
Harvey dejectedly admits he hurt Neelis with his words during a poorly handled emotional outburst. Harvey confesses that every interaction with Neelis now fills him with an overwhelming electric tingle.
Harvey reflects on Neelis's beauty, realizing his feelings for her have shifted into something intense. Harvey looks down in silence, grappling with the heavy burden of his newfound and complicated emotions. Ram takes a drink and concludes that the siblings have entered a difficult new stage.
Ram jokingly wonders if Harvey is just going through a belated and dramatic rebellious phase.
Harvey laments his inability to protect her, fearing he is only becoming a source of pain.
Ram yells at Harvey to snap out of it and stop overthinking their sibling relationship.
Ram asks Harvey if he actually understands how normal siblings are supposed to treat each other. Ram explains that while siblings should protect each other, their bond is usually quite different. Chibi Harvey looks delighted by the explanation, while Chibi Ram recalls his own messy family life.
Ram decides to provide a live demonstration of what he considers to be normal interaction.
Ram approaches his two sisters, Kiki and Lila, while they are busy working with the harvest.
Ram's sisters are annoyed by his sudden prying questions about their school lives and allowances.
Ram dramatically declares his eternal love for his sisters, much to their visible and immediate horror.
The two sisters stare at Ram with expressions of pure, unadulterated disgust and mounting silent rage.
The sisters violently drive Ram away, which he proudly presents to Harvey as normal behavior. Ram notes that while every family differs, Harvey and Neelis are uniquely and excessively clingy. Ram reflects that Harvey's intense devotion to Neelis has long transcended simple, typical familial affection. Harvey runs through the fields, pondering how the years have blurred the lines of their age. Adult Harvey realizes their deep connection has evolved as they have both matured into grown adults.
Harvey remembers a tender head pat, noting that such gestures now feel awkward and charged.
Harvey admits to himself that he is experiencing an attraction reserved for adult men and women.
Neelis is shown in a peaceful, beautiful memory, her gentle smile highlighting Harvey's internal conflict. Harvey looks on with a bewildered expression, standing amidst a field of flowers. Chibi Ram yells that Harvey is the one with feelings, while Harvey wonders if she likes him.
Ram explains that the deep feelings harbors are obvious to everyone except the two siblings.
Ram questions how Harvey would react if Neelis found a boyfriend, imagining his extreme protective nature.
Harvey frantically asks for advice, while Ram tells him to either confess his love or leave.
Ram assures Harvey that Neelis will never abandon him, acknowledging their unique and unbreakable bond.
Harvey aggressively kicks Ram away, ordering his friend to go home and stop being an eyesore. Harvey blushes intensely as he reflects on Ram's words and questions the nature of his feelings. The scene shifts to the wooden house at sunset as Harvey announces his return to Neelis.
Harvey enters the room, debating whether to reveal his newfound feelings or keep them hidden from her.
Neelis startles a blushing Harvey, holding a photo and calling out his name with sudden excitement. Harvey attempts to apologize for his earlier shouting, but Neelis insists that it is currently unimportant.
Neelis holds up a photo and urgently demands that Harvey look at the contents she discovered. Neelis explains that Emily sent a photo of her classmates, noting how much her friend has grown.
A close-up of Neelis's eye captures her shock as she recognizes a specific person in the photograph. Neelis points to a black-haired man in the photo, identifying him with a look of intense realization. Information is revealed about Origate, an ancient magic academy that holds immense power within the kingdom. Harvey notes that the man in the photo who formerly worked for Makara is now at Orogate. Neelis explains that the man is actually the elusive Morgana, a master of transmutation they were seeking.
Neelis wonders why a master of identity changing like Morgana is still using the same recognizable appearance.
The siblings stand together in silence as they process the revelation of Morgana's current location.
Harvey watches Neelis closely, asking her with a hint of jealousy if she cares for the man. Chibi Neelis hits Harvey for being a dummy, loudly clarifying that Morgana is actually a woman. Neelis suggests having Emily invite Morgana over, but Harvey explains that such a request is impossible. Harvey explains the Academy's strict military-style management and the screening process that prevents anyone from leaving. Neelis realizes that without her magic, she cannot use force to sneak into the heavily guarded academy. A close-up of Neelis shows her falling into deep thought as a new idea begins to form. Neelis suggests infiltrating the academy, but Harvey worries it is a trap despite their location being known. Neelis wants to take the risk, believing that Morgana might actually be an ally rather than an enemy. Harvey grabs Neelis's wrist and looms over her, insisting that he can keep her perfectly safe.
Harvey promises to handle everything and protect her, offering to prove his combat skills if she doubts him.
Looming over her, Harvey asks Neelis if her refusal is simply because she wants to avoid him.
Harvey stares down at Neelis with a flushed face, his breathing heavy as their proximity grows tense.
A close-up shows Harvey's hand clenching Neelis's wrist with far more force than he originally intended.
Neelis winces in pain and cries out, causing Harvey to immediately snap out of his intense trance. Harvey looks down with a shocked expression, finally realizing the physical pressure he was putting on her. Harvey apologizes for his behavior while Neelis assures him she is fine despite the sudden rough contact.
Neelis admits she initially liked relying on him, but has become uneasy about their massive gap in strength.
Neelis looks down sadly, expressing her growing internal conflict over her current state of magical helplessness. Neelis laments that without magic, she cannot work, help with chores, or defend herself at all.
Harvey wordlessly places a meal before Neelis, highlighting his current role as her sole provider and protector.
Neelis worries that if she remains purely dependent, she will be helpless if Harvey ever tires of her. Harvey vehemently denies he would ever leave her, though Neelis remains troubled by her lack of independence. Neelis declares her desire to take charge of her own fate rather than existing only as a protected person.
Harvey's eyes widen as he listens to his sister's firm resolve to reclaim her agency and power.
Neelis looks at Harvey with a hesitant expression, asking him if he finds her desire to leave annoying. Harvey smiles warmly and promises Neelis that he could never find anything about her to be annoying. A memory of Neelis protecting a young Harvey flashes by, illustrating the strength she once possessed. Neelis requests that no matter where Harvey goes, he must promise to always take her with him.
Harvey smiles gently at Neelis, silently accepting her request as they prepare for the journey ahead.
The grand, multi-story academy building stands under a bright sky, marked by official house banners.
Emily runs across the academy grounds, calling out to Neelis with a look of pure joy.
Emily pulls Neelis into a tight hug while a skeptical Harvey notes she hasn't changed.
Neelis apologizes for her long absence, but Emily dismisses the concern and thanks her for coming.
Emily reveals she secured Neelis' help by signing a 5-year contract as a post-graduation assistant.
Emily clutches the contract to her chest, beaming with a sense of pride and professional accomplishment.
Neelis reflects on her friend's newfound confidence, noting that Emily seems much happier than she used to.
A solitary figure stands before a grave in a desolate field as leaves drift through the air.
Neelis looks on with a serene and knowing smile, framed by delicate flowers in a peaceful memory. The trio gathers around a table crowded with books and potion ingredients to discuss their next move. Emily explains that Hein is continuing her research from jail to earn a reduced sentence for discoveries.
Emily leans in to assure Neelis that her identity as a witch remains a closely guarded secret.
Neelis narrows her eyes in deep concentration as the conversation turns toward the current whereabouts of Modri. A black-haired man smiles gently, now working as a teacher after quitting following the mass poisoning event. Neelis leans away with a bead of sweat, dismissively telling Emily that her question was about nothing.
Neelis reflects on the red-haired woman's guidance, realizing she must reclaim her magic to ensure her safety.
Harvey gazes intensely at Neelis, promising to act as her shield and keep her safe through everything. Neelis beams with genuine warmth, her eyes closed in a moment of pure, heartfelt happiness and relief. Emily senses Neleus has an ulterior motive for the visit, and Neleus admits she needs academic help.
Emily is shocked by the suggestion that Neelis needs to study, given her incredible natural magical skills.
Standing amidst a floral frame, Neelis and Harvey clarify their goal is not to become academy students.
In a grand library, a professor questions his students about the origin of the plant arcane Bodhi. A pink-haired student named Letitia Damien is identified as the one who provided the plant's unique name.
Letitia explains the history of the arcane Bodhi, a magical plant that changes based on the user's mood.
The professor is moved to tears by Letitia's profound knowledge, overcome with pride for his brilliant student. The scene shifts as an angry voice orders Letitia to stand outside for getting the answers wrong. Students gossip in the hallway about their dislike for Professor Cody's lectures. The female students wish for a new teacher who possesses both impressive magical power and attractive looks. The students spot a sophisticated woman approaching and wonder if their wish for a new teacher came true. Emily stares in shock as her books tumble to the floor, stunned by the person standing before her.
A fellow student asks Emily what is wrong as she stands frozen, staring at the new arrival.
A close-up of Emily's eye reveals her intense shock as she processes the identity of the visitor. Neelis stands elegantly dressed in a sophisticated gown, drawing the awestruck attention of all the surrounding students. Back in the workroom, Neelis explains her desire to secure a position as a teacher at Orogate. Emily notes the academy needs a potions teacher, a role Neelis enthusiastically accepts due to her magical seal.
Neelis declares her expertise in potions, confident that her skills will impress the academy's strict hiring board.
Emily warns Neelis about the grueling 3-part examination process required to work at the prestigious Orogate Academy. Chibi, Neelis, and Harvey look bewildered as Emily explains that only 10 out of 10,000 applicants pass.
Emily adjusts her glasses, the light reflecting off them as she prepares to test Neelis' theoretical knowledge.
A chibi Neelis looks confused by the complex diagrams Emily presents while asking about her theory studies. A hand dips a quill into a bottle of ink, preparing to begin the mock examination process.
Emily holds a book and scrolls, telling a seated Nihilus that it is time to test her skills.
Emily hands Nihilus a paper with beginner questions, giving her a strict 10-minute limit to finish them.
Nihilus looks at the test with total confidence, noting she has brewed these potions since early childhood.
Nihilus writes rapidly, listing ingredients like silvervine and moon blossom while flowers frame her focused and happy face.
Emily slams the paper down and shouts in a rage, asking Nihilus if the test is a joke. Nihilus defends her unconventional brewing methods, insisting that her personal technique is how she has always worked.
A glowing green vial appears as a supreme healing potion, proving the incredible efficacy of Nihilus's unique methods.
Emily turns red with jealousy and anger, demanding that Nihilus ignore her intuition and follow the textbooks.
From outside the building, Emily's voice echoes repeatedly as she forces Nihilus to redo the entire test.
A harsh voice orders the student to memorize the lesson without food while they cry.
Nihilus sits alone on a bench by a fountain, looking completely drained from her studies.
Exhausted, Nihilus takes a quick break to hydrate from a clear bottle under the sun.
Harvey stands surrounded by flowers, offering a refreshing drink to his tired sister with a smile.
Nihilus laments that the written exams are impossible because the answers go against her natural instincts. Nihilus reflects on the intense scolding she received, wondering if her friend's true nature is demonic. Nihilus hides behind Harvey in fear while he empathizes with her feeling that her tutor is demonic.
Harvey asks if she is quitting, but Nihilus clarifies she is just disheartened by her failures.
Harvey offers his unwavering support, reminding Nihilus that she will succeed because she is the witch.
Nihilus smiles mischievously, joking that she will simply poison everyone if the academic tests become too difficult.
Reaching out for comfort, Nihilus places a hand on Harvey's shoulder as her energy begins to fade.
Nihilus asks if she can lean on Harvey for a moment amidst a backdrop of lilies.
Sitting on the bench, Nihilus notes she only has half an hour to rest before continuing.
Harvey watches Nihilus sleep against his shoulder, noting that she has been pushed to her limit.
A close-up of Harvey's eyes shows his deep reflection on the growing intimacy of their bond.
Harvey recalls a past memory of them together in a rose garden before they were interrupted.
Nihilus sleeps peacefully, her features softened by the light as flowers frame her calm, resting face.
Harvey's face turns bright red as he looks down at Nihilus, his heart racing with affection. From behind the bench, Harvey keeps a silent vigil over Nihilus as the autumn leaves fall.
Leaning closer to her, Harvey struggles to maintain his composure while his heart beats faster.
A sleep-talking chibi Nihilus promises to work hard while a panicked Harvey tries to stay calm.
Harvey admits to himself that he is dangerously close to losing control of his intense emotions.
In the Grand Library, the teacher instructs the students to open their textbooks to page 147.
The teacher begins a new lesson regarding the properties of magical ingredients to the seated students.
Standing at the front, Nihilus acknowledges the dryness of theory and urges her class to focus.
A student raises her hand with a question, and Nihilus approaches with a patient, welcoming smile.
Nihilus offers assistance to her class, while Letitia Damien watches her with a look of suspicion.
Letitia slams her hands on the table and calls out for the teacher's attention with urgency.
Letitia claims she is ill and demands that Nihilus escort her to the school infirmary immediately.
Nihilus questions the state of the class, but Letitia insists on leaving for medical help. Emily watches in shock from the back of the room as Nihilus is pulled away.
The students whisper amongst themselves, wondering if the new teacher and Letitia share a secret history. In a secluded corridor, Letitia asks Nihilus when she woke up and why she stayed hidden. Nihilus cites communication issues, but Letitia dismisses the excuse, believing Nihilus could overcome any obstacle.
With tears in her eyes, Letitia asks Nihilus if she was purposefully being shut out.
Nihilus looks at her former student sadly, realizing she can no longer hide her current condition. Nihilus confesses she has lost her magic, prompting a loud and shocked reaction from the girl.
Nihilus quickly shushes Letitia, urging her to keep her voice down in the quiet school hallway.
Nihilus explains she is seeking a cure and can no longer act as freely as before.
Nihilus apologizes for the delay in reaching out, her expression filled with genuine regret and sorrow.
Reaching out a hand, Nihilus offers a gentle smile to the distraught girl standing before her.
Letitia stands frozen with tears streaming down her face, overwhelmed by her teacher's sudden return.
Letitia throws herself into Niela's arms for a tearful hug, finally reuniting after their long separation.
While embracing, Letitia admits she was terrified that Nihilus would never wake up from her slumber.
Nihilus's mind is shown lost in a dark, starry void, representing the isolation of her coma.
Letitia reveals her nightmares and feelings of inadequacy as a beginner while her teacher was gone.
Letitia explains her desire to master magic so she could make Nihilus proud of her progress. A chibi Letitia cries about Nihilus potentially dying, much to the older woman's bewildered amusement.
Wiping her tears, Letitia expresses her deep gratitude and joy that Nihilus is finally alive.
Letitia promises to protect Nihilus now that she is stronger, though she still dislikes magic history.
Nihilus smiles tenderly while gently cupping the face of her former student during their emotional reunion.
Nihilus fondly remembers telling Letitia that she was already a student who made her proud. Letitia curiously asks Nihilus if Harvey actually allowed her to visit the academy all alone today.
Nihilus looks away with a nervous bead of sweat, hesitating as she prepares to answer Letitia. Nearby students whisper in excitement about a mysterious, tall newcomer they have never seen before. The students gossip about the blonde man's identity and dare one another to go ask him.
Letitia points in shock while Neelis offers an awkward smile, both spotting Harvey approaching them.
A handsome man stands amidst a frame of blooming flowers, drawing the immediate attention of onlookers.
Letitia lets out a loud scream of pure disbelief upon realizing that Harvey is actually present.
Students ask Letitia when she got a boyfriend, though she frantically denies the mistaken romantic rumor.
Letitia yells for her teacher's attention as Nielis stands nearby, sweating at the public misunderstanding.
Letitia demands to know why Harvey is here as he stands elegantly amidst a floral backdrop.